away from the city lights of Johannesburg. It started as an informal settlement in 1988 and later was formally established in 1990. Coming from a community of shack dwellers who struggle daily to put bread on the table, the desire to have education may appear misplaced. The SABC took time to attend the Johannesburg South Career Day and Expo in this community with the objective of being an eye-opener to learners in addressing critical and scarce skills that are desperately needed in the country.
We have highlighted the critical and core skills that we require for the SABC to function effectively and efficiently. So these are the kinds of career choices that you can have, in future, and the kind of careers that will also support in terms of bursary accessibility. So if you want to access funds in the SABC for you to study further, you need to make sure that whatever it is that you're applying for is in line with the skills that we have indicated there.
We look at previously disadvantaged communities because learners in schools that are located in previously disadvantaged communities do not have the facilities and the resources or opportunity to be given proper career guidance. And they are limited in terms of the choices that they can make in their careers. So the SABC is here to share that information. But additional to that, the SABC has a bursary scheme. That bursary scheme, learners are encouraged to apply for.
Previously disadvantaged individuals and people with disabilities stand a great chance of being recipients of the bursary. For more information and application forms regarding this bursary, log on to www.sabc.co.za.
We have been able to also collect data that will be of use in terms of assisting us as the SABC to put specific programs from a talent management perspective that appeal to the youth. Very few people actually know that the SABC offers more than a job, but a space for career, for growth.
There was great excitement and self-discovery in learners who attended this expo, in choosing the career path that they think is suitable to them.
Before I came here, I had too many complications. I couldn't make up my own mind. I can say I found myself and I found the relevant career for me. So the expo was really helping.
I thought it's about acting, but I saw many things such as they have a faculty for commerce and they have marketing. Jeez, I didn't know that.
Mina ngikhethe camera operation ngoba ngicabanga ukuthi nami nga-operator lapha khona nami ngibaba ama-camera ngiyenzela ku-SABC ngisebenze khona.
I was thinking I could do forensic science or maybe criminology. But after coming here, I've seen that SABC offers a lot of various careers that I can choose, like on-air broadcasting.
I think I'm considering SABC as my employer, and I think I'll be doing the broadcasting when I'm working there at SABC.
This is going to highlight our learners even to take some of the program career serious and see the need of education integrated together with the career of working in variety of places. SABC is indeed reaching out to the community, is indeed reaching out to the needs of the society, and we wish as a community and the school from the Forum of Education, we wish to see more of this program going on and on, SABC engaging all community members, empowering and informing our kids to become the best of the best.
The SABC is currently going on a massive drive in hosting a number of exhibitions across the country with the aim of bringing young and talented people on board to this vibrant organization.
We will be out there in the communities to say, here we are as the SABC, here's the information that we are sharing on careers, as well as educate young people on the career opportunities that they can pursue and the avenues that they can pursue towards achieving a qualification. One does not necessarily have to go through university. FET colleges are a choice, apprenticeship programs are a choice, learnerships are a choice, integrated work place-based learning is also a choice towards a qualification.
Orange Farm Career Expo, spearheaded by the SABC Group Organizational Development Department in partnership with Radio 2000, SABC Education, SABC Foundation, TVOBs, Corporate Communications, SABC Learning and Development, and Stakeholder Relations.
The shortage of nurses places those nurses who are working under such pressure.
To have one registered nurse looking after a ward full of patients, of over 40 patients, is unreasonable.
But Africa has made tremendous progress. In the year 2012, there were only 50,000 children. 50,000 children too many, but only 50,000 children that died of measles in the whole of Africa, compared to 330,000 in the year 2000.
For all your health issues, join Dr. Sello every Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. CAT.
We really know the hype is about the new and how about the new cabinet will actually perform. But what role should then the media be playing at this critical stage?
I would hope that the media will give the newly appointed people a benefit of the doubt.
Has the media lost its respect in this regard? We want you to tell us.
The many factors that are hidden from the public in terms of this ought to be brought out by the media.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
But there was a side to Talib that very few people knew. Although he formed part of the entertainment industry, Talib never forgot his religion and his beliefs. He came from a very staunch Muslim family and he was attracted to the spiritual side of Islam.
Before Talib was anything else, before he was a playwright, a songwriter, a performer, a singer, a musician, he was a Muslim. And Allah was always first in his life. Always conscious of Allah, remembrance of Allah, and he would always tell me, Mida, Allah first and Allah last and man in between. He was so spiritual in a point that his tasbih, his prayer beads would go everywhere with him.
Well, definitely I could see from Talib that he had a long-standing spirituality with him. It is not something that he built up recently. It is something that was always part of him, but it is something which he never really exposed to the public out there. That was part of his private life, which I feel that everyone needs to respect. So although he only appeared in public as Talib the musician or Talib the entertainer, that great spiritual side was always there with him.
He was a very spiritual person. He spent a lot of time at the kramats. He spoke to me about that. You know, he spoke to me about how he felt about all of that. I mean, I remember when he first went to Mecca, and you know, he went to Mecca many times. Again, those were high points for him. You know, that it was very, very special. He described to me the feelings about all that. We didn't speak about the religion. You know, we never discussed the actual kind of the aspects of religion, but always it was about how religion made him feel, and you know, and he would often say, you know, oh look, the hairs on my arm are standing up now. You know, he would talk about. Sometimes he would feel that, you know, there was a spiritual communication, and then the hairs on his neck would stand up. Or, you know, we were talking about something that was very special to us. And he often he often had that kind of reaction when talking about his religion or about his interest in the spiritual world.
Talib's talent as a musician was put to use in many forms. He often wrote music with little financial reward. In fact, the opening themes to the Islam African religion program Awakenings, as well as this program An-Nur, was written by Talib. When he believed in something or someone, he gave you his full support. His contribution to Islamic music in South Africa has revolutionized it. Islam remained in his heart and soul and came alive in his music.
Well, as a Muslim community who is faith-based, we believe that everything is ordained by God Almighty. All life must terminate. As Allah says in the Quran, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ دَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, that every living soul shall taste of death. So although we are sad, and although many of us are crying, we are shedding tears, our shedding tears is based on the satisfaction of the divine decree of Almighty God, Allah. So yes, we feel a little anger, we feel a tremendous sadness, we have a great sense of loss, but underlying all that and based on all that, we are satisfied with the decree of Almighty, because from Him we come and unto Him is our ultimate return.
Talib's death was especially hard to accept for many of his friends, colleagues and fellow entertainers. Even though much time has passed, the memory of the man who could make anyone laugh and cry is still raw.
My memory of Talib, of course, is his laughter, you know. Talib, he was at his best when he was amongst his friends, musicians and singers and so on. And I suppose my memories of him are particularly in rehearsal rooms when like when the late Sally Daniels was there or so, and Cyril Valentine, Terry Smith and those people, you know, and he would say, Sally on the and then he would start off on a story, you know, and he would get prompted by the guys who walked those streets with him, and then Talib would tell the story, and then he would laugh with such kind of childlike delight, you know, and he would curl up with the laughter. When I was woken up in the middle of the night, you know, a director of the Tricycle Theatre knocking at the door, and you just hear, you know, Talib's been murdered, you know. I just seen the man, you know, at the opening of Guma, and I'm glad that that's how we parted. I mean, we parted at an opening night of our last show together. And so that was good, you know. It was really nice that we shared such a celebration, you know. I mean, to have come all these years working together, and I mean, Talib loved London. He loved the idea of us performing in London, and to be there and to say goodbye to him there. I was glad of that, but the fact that he's murdered and the fact that he's gone, and that I haven't accepted that yet. I keep thinking I'll see him, you know.
For the family, a father, brother, uncle, and more importantly, friend was lost.
In actual fact, he was my best friend, and always gave of himself relentlessly, be it to his family, be it to his friends, be it to the community at large. The day of his demise, at the funeral, the universe answered back at him, because why I say that is Allah granted, judging the people that grieved for him, that said farewell to him, that came to carry him to the Qabristan, to the grave. Yeah, that within itself made a very, very huge statement. And I said to myself while I was looking at him, yes, Talib, today the people are there for you, whereas in the past you were there for them. And after his body, the maid, was on the bed, I went up to him and I quickly said a prayer on behalf of him to God, and I said, wait, let me quickly just squeeze this in, Talib. This is for you. Yes. Remember that statement I made, when you die, a part of me will die? Well, it just did. It was extremely, extremely painful, to a point that I thought that this pain was going to kill me. And also the emptiness, the sense of helplessness, the sense of loss, which to my mind was just so overwhelming.
Maar ik zei die. Ik heb iemand goed verloren.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
I thought we were taking... Well, live from the ZK Matthews Hall at the University of South Africa in Pretoria, good evening and welcome to this special broadcast brought to you by SABC News. Well, tonight we'll be bringing you this live dialogue session, really a conversation between South Africans young and old in honor of former President Nelson Mandela. This dialogue session, of course, sessions were introduced. You will recall about 2 years ago or so, there was that national dialogue in Soweto where it was decided that we should get this nation in conversation all the time so that young people get to know and learn what happened before they were born and in the years that they were young, so that they are better equipped to actually take over from the people who've been running the country over the past 20 years or so. So we are bringing you that one of those dialogues this evening. Well, without much ado, we're going to go right inside where Mr. Tim Modise is, of course, chairing the dialogue session, where Minister of Sports and Recreation Fikile Mbalula, Dr. Somadoda Fikeni from UNISA, among other people, will be participating in that panel. Let's go right inside.
Yeah. And I suppose that's why you'd have a person like myself as part of the proceedings, because this is going to be a live broadcast and it's got to start on a particular time. So we cannot start yet. Dr. Puleng Sekgalo, you've set me up, but I know it's not deliberate on your part. So I will delay things a little bit because we've got to cross to channel 404 on time at 7:50 p.m. And we'll also be on SAFM, the broadcast. So now I'm told we are actually live, so they've managed to sort things out. And this is how we're going to work the evening. As you all know, this is your time. The time is now. Generation 2.0. It can only be Minister of Sport Bucks to position it that way, and it makes absolute sense. Generation 2.0. The whole point is that young South Africans who grew up in democratic South Africa have got a vastly different experience of the South Africa that you've always heard about. And what we are going to attempt to do tonight is to take you through what transpired in the past up to now, what exactly was the vision of the elders of the time. Rolf Meyer will talk to us about that, give us a sense of how negotiations took place and what the drafters of the Constitution were envisioning when they put it all together. And Minister Mbalula will talk to us about this project itself, what he thinks must come out of it, Minister Natim Teto will also talk to us about the social cohesion, nation-building elements of it. We are not going to shirk away from even the contentious issues of our time. We're going to talk about the challenges that face us, and Dr. Somato Fikeni will talk to us about that, as well as Ms. Kolis Obam. They will reflect on that. But from you, please take it from me. From you, I know sometimes we think that leadership is a future thing, it's going to happen in the future, but leadership happens now. You'll hear from the panelists when they tell you that leadership happens now. And that is why you have invested time and you are here at the institution of learning, because you have already imagined your future and you are creating it now. So we're looking forward to your creative inputs and very interesting observations in terms of our achievements so far, our challenges so far, as well as the opportunities going forward. We know that the people who came together, strategized for, and put together the National Development Plan have got an idea of what needs to happen in South Africa and how we get there. So this colloquium is being set up to hear from you. I spoke to Minister Mbalula this morning. He told me, he says, the document is there. Anyone can read it, and we can say the document must make itself come alive, but that's not going to happen. Who's going to make it come alive? You are going to make it come alive, right? And together we are going to see how we make it come alive. So let me not waste your time and call on Minister Fikile Mbalula to please come forward and take your position here, sir. And he, in his own right, was an activist while still a teenager, became a leader of the ANC Youth League, and one of the youngest politicians in the old cabinet, and now a full-on minister responsible for sports and recreation. Thank you very much, sir. And his colleague, Minister Natim Teto, please take your position, sir. Also has first-hand experience of struggling for change and for freedom in this country as a young man, as a teenager, a leader, a union mobilizer, and responsible for arts and culture in this country. Mr. Rolf Meyer, one of our elder statesmen, conflict resolution expert, co-chair of the Constituent Assembly, and one of the people responsible for drafting our Constitution. Dr. Somato Fikeni. A well-known commentator, academic, and an expert on transformational issues, and also is an expert of culture and heritage. A pleasure to have you with us here this evening. And Ms. Kolis Obam, please join us. She is an educationist and expert, as well as a business professional, and has experience in finance industry, and she is very much involved in transformation as well. So if I please can get a round of applause for Ms. Kolis Obam. So the panelists are going to talk to us. They are going to give us their own perspectives on what they think we've achieved so far, what the challenges are, and what they think the opportunities are all about. I'm going to give them a chance to give us their own remarks for about 5 minutes each, and thereafter it's going to be an interactive session. I'm going to take questions from you, and let me ask you up front, please identify yourself, tell me the institution that you come from, and not only pose questions, but we are also looking for ideas, right? Am I right, Minister Mbalula? Minister Mteto, that's what you want, right? I mean, it's not a gripe session, but it does not mean you shouldn't raise your concerns. Go ahead and raise them, but also make a contribution, because after all, we want to create your future now. It's Generation 2's event, this, all right? So, we also have got a message from the Deputy President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's take a listen.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of this colloquium. I am sorry that I cannot be with you in person. It is particularly fitting that your deliberations are dedicated to the memory and legacy of our founding president, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. It was the power of his vision of a democratic, non-racial and non-sexist South Africa that mobilized millions of people here as well as around the world to defeat apartheid. At this colloquium, 20 years into our democracy, it is worth recalling what Madiba said at his inauguration on 10th May 1994. He said, "We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall, without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity, a rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world." 20 years later, we can reflect with pride on our achievements in improving the material conditions of our people. More people today have access to safe drinking water than ever before in our history. 90% of households have access to electricity. More than 12 million of our people now have a place they can call their home. More people have access to education, health care, and other social services. But there is much more to be done. To build a cohesive society, South Africa needs to reduce poverty and inequality. We need to broaden opportunity and employment through economic inclusion, education and skills development, and the measures that we can take to redress the injustices of the past. We must promote mutual respect by acting on the constitutional imperative that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, and that all are equal before the law. We must deepen the appreciation of citizens' responsibilities and obligations towards one another. The youth of today stand ready to place South Africa on a higher developmental trajectory. As young people, you are our nation's most valuable asset and our key to the future. It is within your reach and power to change the lives of millions of young South Africans who struggle to find employment. It is up to you to make this a nation of entrepreneurs, a nation of innovators, a nation of producers, rather than just as a nation of consumers. It is up to you to integrate our country further into the region and the continent of Africa. It is also within your means to become the first HIV-free generation of our new South Africa. All of this starts by taking education seriously. It starts with an active interest in public life. Do dream of a better society and work tirelessly to make it a reality. It is you who must take ownership of the future. It is you who must lead. And it is you who must drive the change that our country needs. As young people, you must be bold and selfless. I wish you well in your deliberations. I trust that they will be both enrich and be able to add a lot to public debate and inspire all our people to work together for meaningful social change. I would like to thank you for this opportunity of being able to speak to you. Thank you.
Well, the message is loud and clear from the Deputy President there, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, and I think he has outlined what the whole objective of tonight's event is all about. And as Minister Mbalula said, this is Generation 2.0. Your time is now. We are, politically speaking, a very young nation, demographically speaking, a very young nation. And as we know, young people are very exuberant, but more importantly, they are ambitious. They've got very inspiring and creative ideas on how we can take the nation forward. So we're gathered here, Minister Fikile Mbalula, nation building, social cohesion, job opportunities, creation of opportunities, education, a whole number of themes that we are going to attempt to cover this evening. But from where you are sitting, reflecting back on the past 20 years and trying to imagine a future, how do you want us to deal with these issues? What are you thinking about?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Tim, for the opportunity, and to everybody, and the fellow panelists, and my colleague and Minister Natim Tetwa, and Deputy Minister of Sports and Recreation, Gert Westhuizen, DG, and acting DG of of Arts and Culture, and DG of Sport, and MMC Makeke. All protocol observed. Colleagues present here, SASCOC, I can see many people, but I'm not going to acknowledge everybody. Yusuf, lead SA, whom we work with all the time. Thank you for being here. But first and foremost, this concept really, it's not really a concept, but it's the evolution of the youth in terms of their formations, because many people think of young people as a homogeneous entity. And yet we talk about young people with varied interest in a sector of young people. And there's been a lot of loosely thrown concepts about born freeze, boom shaka generation, but we call them the Mandela generation, Generation 2.0, because if you say it is born freeze, who said they were born free? So 20 years into democracy, there are a number of issues that we're confronted with as a generation of young people. And chief amongst them, the same as here in South Africa and the world, is the notion of nation formation and the whole concept of nation building, which to some it is elusive, underpinned by a number of deep-seated challenges, unemployment, poverty, and all of that. But why do we continue to negotiate our path towards nation building, and others characterized as Mandela's foundation of selling out from 1994? Not me, others. But the fact of the matter is that common nationhood, it is fundamental stage in the formation of a nation, because many other countries were liberated and freed before us are still talking about nation formation. You talk about United States of America, you talk about the Germans, you talk about the Russians. Nobody else would have said that we have reached a full stage of nation formation. But located within that in South Africa is a question of social cohesion. What constitutes national interest? Because everybody else we can differ, but at the end of the day, what are the non-negotiables? What make us South African, and what make us to preserve those things that are non-negotiables with regard to building a nation, social cohesion, and so on? The flag is important, the national anthem, the questions of national security in building a state. What is it that we are jealous about that we need to preserve as South Africans? So Generation 2.0 colloquium and dialogue is a prelude to what is a precursor to what will be happening this weekend, but to begin to engage with young people and society, those things that are key that confront us today in a democratic South Africa. Because in my last point is that we talk about the united, democratic, non-sexist, prosperous South Africa. We have just, had access over levers of state power, which in itself does not translate to a full realization of that full democratic state. So in what we seek to create, what are the challenges that we're faced with, and why it is important to continue to walk on the path of realizing culmination note at the end. Thank you.
And those are the remarks of Minister Mpalu. Are you impressed or not impressed? For a moment I was concerned. I said, what happened? I mean, he energizes people and he put you to sleep. You'd be the first audience to be put to sleep by Minister Mbalula. Now, I have had chats and I've listened to interviews conducted by Minister Nathi Mthethwa, and he's spoken a lot about heritage in recent times, talking about cultural expression. And of course, you know, to achieve any goal, a nation needs to be united in the way it deals with itself, and it has to have a sense of its own values, who it is and what it's all about. Minister of Arts and Culture, Mr. Nathi Mthethwa.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Tim, and good evening, everyone. My colleague here has, on my behalf, acknowledged the dignitaries and everybody who's here, but I think we need to also acknowledge the dignitaries who are up there yourselves, because tonight is your day, is your night. We want to hear from you. So our usually long speeches and so on today will take leave and let you lead us in this discussion. But as we reflect back 20 years into our democracy, there are things we need to emphasize and see how far we've gone. We can talk about the access to water, sanitation, and everything else. But we also have to talk about those intangible values in our society. We've got to understand and come to a realization or agreement whether or not we've moved as far as possible in ensuring that whatever we do, our society is united. So today we are asking that question: how far have we gone to unite our society? For that to happen, there have to be unifying perspectives. There have to be unifying values for society. And each and every one of us have to buy into that. One of those is the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The document which was negotiated by all and sundry, our leaders in this country. And it is important to emphasize the point that the naysayers, when we say that it is important to start from the schools, to ensure that people understand our Constitution, understand the preamble of our Constitution, which acknowledges where we come from, the past, which was painful. And it says that we need to build going forward. We need to heal the divisions of the past. And without moving from that premise, we would be fooling ourselves to say that we are building a nation. So much has been done, but we still have more to look into to ensure that indeed we use arts, culture, and heritage, for instance, as this powerful tool to unite the people of our country. But as we said yesterday, that the road we've traversed so far has a destination which is still very long for us to go. We've said that the road to social progress is always under construction. And with that, we hope that together with everybody else in our society, we are going to realize a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa. And I thank you, Tim.
Thanks very much, Minister Nathi Mthethwa. Well, you may be generation 2.0, but you've had the history of South Africa. It was a difficult one, and some of the difficulties and struggles are still with us today. But it came to a point where sanity prevailed and men and women sat around the table, negotiated the outcome that we are now celebrating when we talk about 20 years of democracy. But in doing so, they had to work on a particular vision, and they had to imagine a South Africa they wanted to create. And they had that enshrined in the document that we all cherish as our Constitution, which must serve as a guide for all that we do, whatever we imagine, whatever we plan to achieve going forward. And one of the drafters and leading persons in the drafting of the Constitution is Ruth Meyer, who's here with us this evening. So you can help us appreciate the thinking that went into the drafting of the Constitution and how we go about creating that very society that the Constitution asks us to do.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for the invitation to be here this evening. I would like to congratulate Minister Mbalula and Minister Mthethwa for creating this initiative, taking the initiative by the hand and bringing it here and arrange this opportunity where we can sit down. Tim, I can now understand why you called me the elder. You want me to talk about history. So let me just reflect a little bit. I don't want to bore you, but let me just reflect a little bit on where we were 25 years ago. I'm saying specifically 25 years ago because it was around about November 1989. Most of you were not born, I guess, by then. And there it was where we started to decide in the then government to start the process by releasing President Nelson Mandela. That is where we started the process. And then he was released in February. The ANC was unbanned, other organizations too. And then we started to talk. And you know what? For 2.5 years we talked without making progress. And then we had a complete breakdown in the negotiations. Boipatong massacre happened in June of 1992. It was a major destructive moment. I will recall it like today because President Mandela called off all talks. He said it on public media. There was only, by the way, 1 or 2 channels at that stage. And he announced it on the 8 o'clock news. Tim, I suppose you will recall it too. Yeah. And there we were in the deepest of sad moments because all talks were off. And then suddenly we started to emerge from that again. We started to talk again because we realized there was no other way. We had to dialogue to find a way forward. And the changing moment was when we then started to look at what is it that we want from the future instead of what is it that we want to protect from the past. And I'm speaking from the mindset that I was coming from when I say this. But the changing moment was when we could start to focus on the future, to develop a vision. And when we started to develop that vision together, of saying, what is it that we need to protect? We realized there's one thing fundamental in our Constitution that we have to protect, and that is individual rights. And to say we are all equal in South Africa. That is the foundation of our Constitution. That is why I think most South Africans today would still say, this Constitution is the best in the world. And that is why I think most South Africans would say, this is the one thing that we would live for, our Constitution. So that is part of the process, that is part of the history. Much more can be said about it. I was fortunate thereafter to serve in the first cabinet of President Mandela, to proceed with the process after the transition. And 2 things that came to my mind during that period was that, yes, the moment of transition was quick, it was done. The change over from apartheid to democracy happened like this on the 27th of April 1994, 20 years ago. But the process of transformation is ongoing. It's now even still ongoing. That is what we're talking about. That is what the National Development Plan is about. And that is what we all have to commit ourselves to, is to create that future that we aspire for. It's an ongoing process, but like we were at that crucial moment talking about the future and saying to ourselves, it's not about the past, it's about the future. I think we have to say the same today. And that is why I'm so happy that we have this event to look into the future. Not what is even 20 years behind us, but what is ahead of us in the next 20 years.
Thank you very much, Rolf Meyer. Well, obviously, whatever outcome you desire in your life will happen on the basis of deliberate effort. And that deliberate effort requires informed thinking. And you have to be clear in the way you envision the future and how you go about it. But not everything is political in nature. After all, the Constitution is there, society goes about its business every day. But what is the view of civil society about how far we've come up to this point? Mekoli Sobam.
Good evening to everybody. Honorable guests, I will say, in trying to include everyone and leave no one. As civil society, yes, we are happy with what has happened since 1994, especially in terms of the achievements, what this country has overcome in terms of democracy, something that many of us never thought we could witness, let alone the elders, those who have gone before us, who assisted in making sure that we achieve what this country has achieved. Many strides have been taken, especially in the area of empowering women, not sexism. We have institutions in this country that stand for everyone. The Human Rights Commission, Gender Commission, you name them. There are many. We never thought that we could be where we are in terms of the laws of discrimination, because previously we knew that as a black and especially a woman, you couldn't achieve a certain standards, especially within the employment sector, within our own churches. Women now are able to become bishops. Women are becoming chief directors. They sit on the boards of directors. But that is not enough. We say more still needs to happen. Despite these achievements, we know that we have economic challenges, and hence priority we should be given to addressing the economic gap that is developing. It's good now we can speak of a middle class. We never thought that we'd have as many of our own becoming or being called the middle class, which means that we have earned many privileges, and those privileges we need to guard. But as we guard them, we have to address the ills that are beginning to take away those gains. For instance, the rate of crime, abuses. With social cohesion, the attempt is to try and address or make sure that we reduce those ills that are troubling our communities. Because if that does not happen, all that has been gained will be lost, will be meaningless. As we can see, the frustration that we see amongst our youth because of their rate of unemployment. As the social cohesion structure, we are here, amongst other things, through these dialogues, to assist the department and government and address some of these ills and see how we can assist those who are involved in attempting to make some ends meet as entrepreneurs. One would say people should not lose hope. It could be that we're going through a phase. If I may just reflect, on Sunday, it was the commemoration of the Day of the United Nations Day of Tolerance, which shows that intolerance is a problem globally. It is not just a problem with us as South Africans. And therefore, we would urge everyone to learn to bear with one another in trying to address some of these intolerances like xenophobia. Because if one goes back, the idea that we have this dialogue is to speak to ourselves, starting from community, as it has been suggested that, in fact, we need to go out to the communities, because the basis of everything and the prejudices that many of us develop and learn are learned within our families. Because if we can strengthen our family lives, how we bring up our children, how schools and churches are brought on board in trying to address some of the ills that are really plaguing our society, as civil society, we would have, done a lot in trying to reduce these intolerances. Social cohesion talks about simple things. As many say, it's not about big things. It's about the ordinary things that we have known, things like respect and tolerance, as I've mentioned. And for young people, working hard. Nothing can never achieve anything without working hard. All those who have gone before us have achieved whatever they have achieved because of their hard work. It is to us to be tolerant, to be self-respective. In that way, we also be building our nation. Thank you.
Ms. Kolisa-Bam, thank you very much. Well, I'm just about to introduce one of the leading political commentators in the country, policy analysts, and also an academic, has traveled around the world, obtained his qualifications from all over the place. But one of the fascinating things about him, which I was not aware of, so I'm going to share with you, is that he was bestowed with honorary chieftaincy in Ghana. Why? I can't tell you. I don't have the background information to that, but I just came across that information. So just though you come across, you meet Dr. Somato Dafigeni, you can also hail him as chief. I'm not sure what the salutation, the proper protocol is when you salute a chief from Ghana. But nevertheless, just to remind you that if you're following the proceedings both here and at home, you can tweet us at Unite for Mandela, Unite for Mandela, and let's hear your comments as well. Remember, this is information that's going out in the public. Would like to hear your views on how you think South Africa should start putting its act together as it moves forward. Now, your perspectives, Professor.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. I think the slogan of today is "Our time is now." We must begin to reflect on the journey of the country. 20 years on, South Africa is not where it was, and yet South Africa is not where it is supposed to be. And therefore, what must we do to continue the journey so that we reach the promised land? To paraphrase Reverend Fingai in the Tiosoga lecture, we are in a moment, a time between times, and a place between places. I want to preface, Tim, my observations with what the then president of the ANC said in a youth conference in Harare in 1985, when he said, "A nation that does not take care of its youth does not deserve a future." I also want to link that with Frantz Fanon in his book, The Wretched of the Earth, when he said, every generation must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. For us to take the journey that the Mandelas, the Sobukwes, the Tambos, the Sisulus, the Lutulis started, we have to be brutally honest in our reflection. We must acknowledge the gains that we've made in terms of setting up the institution of democracy. We've done exceptionally well. In terms of the social security net for those who are most vulnerable, we've done exceptionally well. But in terms of real transformation in economic and social sector, we still have many rivers to cross. A numerical majority today is a cultural minority. The culture of the minority is a dominant culture. That's why language, content of what we read in our schools, is still reflecting the dominant paradigms. Therefore, a new person with a new consciousness cannot be born under those conditions. An economy that is very much concentrated to the monopolies in each sector. If you're talking banking sector, you'll say the big four, the mining sector, the mobile, cell phones and so forth. You can't have a competitive economy because it is choked by the dominant players. It is for that reason when construction industries collude, the country develops weak knees to confront them because they have raw power of size. We must also reflect on whether we are a developmental state or a welfare state. If we're a welfare state, what we ought to do to be a developmental state. Because in a welfare environment, we emphasize consumption. The state provides until we develop dependency and entitlement instead of self-reliance and self-development. So the youth of today should insist on hand up, not a hand out. As we speak today, we are experiencing something that needs urgent attention, crisis of our institutions. From parliament to political parties, broadcasting services and so forth. And as a nation, we ought to be saying we need to attend to those problems rather urgently, because we cannot capture the Africa Rising narrative if we're still trapped in an infantile disorder or a theater after theater when people are compressed by economic and social ills. And lastly, I do think that it is very important for us to say what are the characteristics of a youth, a generation that must take us forward. One, you can't do that if you are trapped in materialism. Everything is about me, myself, and I. Because the moment you are obsessed and fixated with material things, it weakens the courage of your conviction. Sometimes it is used to compensate for your inner weakness. And no. So it is in that environment that we should be saying what could be the role of arts and culture and heritage? What could be the role of sports in reigniting a sustained public dialogue as a country? We are a very noisy and argumentative democracy, but we lack robustness and sustained focus on what it means to transform things.
All right. Well, I can tell that you've been energized now. And we like it this way, you see. Softly, softly, but the punches are solid. All right? Now you get it. Now you understand what the point of this colloquium is all about, do you? All right, show me by your hands those who want to add your voices to these deliberations. Let's see who wants to speak. I'm going to take one, this side, and then the second, from here, the third, fourth, and fifth here. We'll do it that way, all right? Okay. I want generation 2, preferably, right? If you are certain that you are generation 2, fine. But if you are not sure that you are generation 2, remember you've got to identify yourself and tell me which institution you come from.
Good evening. My name is Mighty Jamie. I'm on the SRC at Wits University. My question is specific to education. I think the NDP has very ambitious plans for 2030. But the reality is, and this is the question and probably the suggestion, is that while we want great education for our youth and we want to sow seeds of greatness, the reality is at our institutions, education is the easiest degree to get into, and teachers are the worst paid people. So even if I wanted to be a teacher and teach the generation which is to come, it's not financially viable for me to do so. And those who do choose to do so don't seem to be the best qualified. And those who do go into education, very few of them go into maths, science, and technology. So what's the real plan to make sure that we have more maths teachers coming out of institutions such as Wits University? Because currently there's about 20 students in fourth year, and that's not going to make a real difference by 2030. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. And there's also, I think there's an implied solution in your question as well. So we will respond. I'm taking 4 or 5 of your comments first. I said, let's move on a block by block basis, please. If we can move from here to this block, all right? So we have the second one there standing. This side, please. If we can move this side, we'll come back to you. Can we move this side? I'd like to favor the whole hall.
Thanks, Program Director. My name is Tleng Kimpotu, Chairperson of the NCU League, University of Johannesburg, Banton Road campus. Just for a record, Minister, we are not only a generation 2.0, but we are also the White Chokocha generation. So our ambition is free education in our lifetime. So I just wanted to find out from you, the panel, is it possible that South Africa realize free education like Cuba? Thank you.
All right, let's check the hands here. We got a lady here in front. This
hi.
side. Let's see. Let's try and get the camera to you because I want you to be on TV. Or you're already on television anyway. So please identify yourself and tell us the institution you're coming from.
My name is Valentine Jovu. I'm from the University of Wits. Yeah. My question, it's not really a question but a concern. Mandela was really big on Rainbow Nation, and looking around, I feel like Rainbow Nation is not really represented. So what can be done to, secure that everyone is represented and there is equality, because for a Rainbow Nation to be functional, I feel like every race should be represented and they should be here.
Thank you. And let's go to that side, please. Who do we have?
Okay. Thank you, program directors, to be given this opportunity. My name is Lisbon Monyela from CIPC. CIPC is the member of the DTI who's responsible for registration of companies. I want to speak on behalf of the youth who are registering the companies on behalf, for the reason of making their living for themselves and also helping on the program of the government of eradicating poverty amongst the youth or the people of South Africa. The real concern from the youth is that they are registering their business each and every day, but there is no help from the government or the private sectors in doing the business with government or any private sector. So I have the view or the concern that the government is not doing enough, especially the NYDA, which was supposed to help those youth. So I'm on the view that the government is not doing enough effort to help those youth who are trying their level best to eradicate unemployment and eradicate poverty, which is there in South Africa. So I like to ask the cabinet members who are here today. Now we are going to have the Department of Small Businesses. So if at least if they can add the concerns that the youth they are raising every day, so that they can help the youth to eradicate the poverty which is there in South Africa. Thank you very much.
We got that. All right, I will. Okay, maybe let's take one comment from the floor here in front of us. See a few hands here, please. Okay. All right. You know what? Let's go. Okay, you ready?
E-learning was dealing with me, but I'm covered. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I am Buisile Njogweni, the Secretary General of the SRC, hosting you here today in UNISA. Well, I have two brief questions. One, Comrade Ralph spoke briefly about the history and where we come from as a country. We all understand that there is what is called, or what are called, sunset clauses, which the negotiators agreed upon. Now I want to understand if Mr. Ralph is at liberty to educate this Boomshaka generation about some of the important aspects of the sunset clauses. The second question is that, is nation building possible and social cohesion possible without economic liberation? Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much for those questions. When we come back for another round of questions and comments, we'll follow more or less the same order. I'm going to challenge you now. Is that fine? I'm going to challenge you to propose ideas of what we need to do. All right, we've had the questions. Let me get the panelists to respond to the questions. We remember them. One was education, teacher training. The second was provision of free education. The third was, how do we build a nation, rainbow nation, given the representativity that we see here this evening? The other was support for youth entrepreneurship, and two final questions on sunset clauses and economic emancipation. Who wants to go first? Minister Mbalula? You want to take a break for a second? Well, Minister Natim Teto.
Thanks, Tim. I want to start by saying that I don't think that tonight is going to be a question and answer session. It's going to be a session where we get to understand what goes through the mind of the Generation 2.0 on pertinent issues we have asked. A variety of issues we have asked, from education to the economy and so on. What views are out there? If you look at what has been raised on the issue of science and technology and education, I would want to start from the point that the government of the day has prioritized education as the apex priority of all the priorities of our society, and emphasized the very subject of science and technology, maths and science in particular, and technology. And those are because of the understanding of where we come from, that our history was such that Africans and blacks in general were to be excluded to these very critical economic subjects, which make wealth prosper and progress. And therefore, what we have identified as a weakness of having not achieved fully that which the government is putting in place is a fair comment. The issue is that the commitment government has to continue to ensure that at the end of the day, the historic injustice which was visited upon the people of South Africa, especially the majority, is dealt with. Other questions of social cohesion, it's work in progress. It's something we need to always engage on. When reconciliation became the key pillar of our democracy, the governing party, the African National Congress, and all other parties which negotiated during the negotiation process emphasized the point that each and every one of us, it's not the task of one section of society to ensure that there is reconciliation, there is non-racialism, there is inclusivity. It is the task of all the sections of our society, black, white, brown, yellow, and so on. So we should be challenging each other that if there is a call out there, because this call was made out there to the public, our compatriots have to be part and parcel of the moving process of nation formation. And that will happen when everybody commits themselves in this process. I would answer those, Tim, for now. Thank you.
Let me get, you want to comment, Minister Mbalula?
No, let me comment. I don't know what to say, but I think we're not having a directed discussion. I'm not saying that we must move like, train in terms of steps and all of that. But in terms of the focus, I think it is important when it comes to the question of nation building, nation formation. The question that has been raised about why we are not representative in this is fundamentally about the topic itself. Because the question of class and gender, race, are not mutually exclusive from one another in terms of the primary contradictions we seek to address in the evolution of society. Because first and foremost, remember, this apartheid we are talking about, it was apartheid, but it was apartheid also that was about us divided even in terms of class, in terms of gender, over and above that about race itself. And the fact that we are unable to reach out to one another, we are unable to cohere on fundamental issues in the Republic of South Africa in the new dispensation. The key question to a young person is, why are the things the way they are? The first time white South Africans felt how it is to be a South African and to live in this country with other fellow patriots is when they went to the first match of the Blue Bulls at Orlando Stadium. And then, because all the time they were told that, those people are quarantined, they are very wild, you are going to die when you go there. But they went there and then came back, and we can then cohere primarily because of and even got married, and even continue to go to Soweto every weekend, because this taboo that has been created that we can't coexist, it's not there. And I think there's been limited dialogue within this nation and not been robust, like Dr. Somadoda Figeni says, with regard to issues that confront us. You get to University of Potchefstroom, young people are singing and have been drilled into Hitler's style of living. And then it is then realized over time through some commission of inquiry, of which he belongs to that. I've got the privilege to talk to him from time to time. But
which one, sorry, Minister? The very one that drilled people into those things?
Not totally different from that one. But the one that examined the root causes of why certain things like that happen in a new dispensation in a university like that. We've seen in the stadiums the old flag disappearing. Everybody seemed to embrace this flag of South Africa. If you have been to a match of the Springboks and you listen to South Africans singing the national anthem in that particular match per se, you will feel greatly South African. In fact, it is something that is not even done in a match of Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. I mentioned Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs because Bafana games are not always full. I don't know now after winning. Probably it will be something else. But the Springbok games are always full to capacity. So that is when you feel the touch and the feeling of South Africans about how they feel about their own national anthem. Because when Bafana used to play, we were always not full at FNB, wherever we were. But now the stadiums are full. But at Pirates and Chiefs, you will feel how. And even how we go about singing this national anthem is not like business as usual. So the fundamental question for us that confront us in the universities and everywhere else in terms of ideas of building a nation is that what are the things that prohibit us in this path of building a nation? Of course, the question of class plays a fundamental role. The question of gender disparity and so on plays a role in relation to that. The fact that we still see ourselves as black and white, and it's not going to stop. I think those are some of the challenges that that we are confronted with. What I'm trying to raise, Tim, is that she's raising an issue without confronting the question and raising what are the issues that prohibit us to continue to realize that we are one South Africa, and how do we continue to understand South African identity today?
Well, as I already put the notice out there that the next round, we're now going to propose ideas and say, given where we are, this is how we think things should happen. Let me ask Rolf Meyer first to comment on the sunset clause as well as economic emancipation. Your thoughts?
I think the subject of the sunset clause got a little bit distorted over time. Where it came from was initially a proposal that was made by Joe Slovo. Now, allegedly, others were also thinking about the same idea, but Joe Slovo was the one in my presence that proposed that we should have the sunset clause, which was about creating the government of national unity concept. And that was supposed to last for 5 years. And that is where the sunset idea came in. And why I'm saying it got distorted is because after 2 years, the National Party in any case walked out of the government of national unity, which to my mind was a big mistake. But that is a separate debate. But this is where the sunset idea came in, and that is how the theme, stayed in people's minds. But it was essentially a way of finding a compromise. Compromise to provide for the transition in a certain way from the old to the new. But linked to that, and this addresses the subject of economic emancipation as well. Where we're coming from, I keep on thinking, is that we had an old paradigm in South Africa which lasted for more than 3 centuries, not only since 1948. And that paradigm informed apartheid. And that paradigm was one of superiority versus inferiority. It was the minority that thought they were superior to the majority. And that was the underlying paradigm of racism in South Africa. And that is what we had to fix. And that is what we succeeded in doing through the negotiations in replacing that paradigm with a new paradigm. New paradigm that says we are all equal by means of individual rights, which is protected in the Constitution. That is the new paradigm that we created. And away, gone was the old paradigm. But to make it happen in practice still takes time. And that is why I think the professor was right when he said, and I think I alluded to the same point, and that is it's an ongoing process. It is one of transformation. Quite frankly, the day that the transition happened, 27th of April 1994, I asked myself the question, how long is the transformation going to take to be fulfilled, to be completed? And, you know, stupidly almost, I said to myself, it will take us 15 years. That is what maybe I hoped for. Now it's 20 years later, and we are far from complete. And I think this is what we have to discuss. How can we speed up this process of transformation? We all agree what happened was right in terms of the transition. That we removed that old paradigm and that we replaced it with a new paradigm. But how can we speed up the process of transformation? That, I think, is the big question that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis.
Well, Dr. Somadoda Fikeni, you're part of the community in a way. You may not be Generation 2 yourself, right? But you're very familiar. The cohesiveness, the social cohesion, cannot only take place out there in the broader society, as the young lady was asking. We should ask, why is it not being felt amongst the students themselves? I would have thought they're much more transformed than anybody else, actually, in terms of coming together, more than anywhere else, because Minister Mbalula has got to talk to the sports federations and basically compel them to transform. But I don't think UNISA has got to be compelled or Wits in terms of the makeup of the student body. So what are the dynamics at play here? That is one. And also I'd like to hear your comments on the way we go about developing and training educators, teachers, at an institution such as Wits, Noha.
Well, I think the first thing as South Africans, we should disabuse our minds of this notion of South African exceptionalism, where we think we are a unique creation of God that should not compare to other post-colonial realities. Racism is entrenched in the society. As Rolf was saying, it took centuries. I lived in the US, I lived in Canada, I've visited places like Australia. They've been grappling with this problem 100 years later. Instead, we should just accept the fact that it will take a concerted, conscious effort to fight the scourge of racism, and it's not going to end in some date in a calendar next year. So that's the first thing that we should. But for us to do that, we must develop in our policies, in our programs, a notion of multicultural consciousness, where you begin to appreciate the cultural communities and how they live, what their history, what their sensitivities are. That presupposes coexistence. So for coexistence to happen, you must first affirm those cultures which were marginalized, their languages, their dress codes, and many other things. So that is where we have to start. It's not only this event. In the national days, you find that South Africans go to different places when others are going to the Heritage Day, others are going to a Bride Day to dilute that Heritage Day. So that in itself is very important that we start working on those things. On the issue of education, I think we must develop a certain consciousness for educators or teachers which look at their positions not as a career but as a commitment, because it is the most fundamental profession that gives birth to all other professions, and as such improve indeed the condition of teachers, but also the culture of learning and teaching must also be restored. Discipline in schools and all that is key. But I go further to say the consciousness and the content of the curriculum should be saying, if a child drops out of grade 7, can they make a living? Do we provide them with some basic skills, needlework, woodwork, and other things which make them to live? But not only that, when you organize functions like weddings, funerals, ceremonies, we often go to the project managers or events planners, having learned from the West that you must do an RSVP, people should confirm and so forth. But in our education, we've never asked ourselves how women in the townships and villages have always organized weddings, funerals, and ceremonies without an RSVP. What is the science behind it? Those Western methods, they RSVP, you still run out of drumsticks and sitting spaces. But the other one always succeed, but we've never integrated it into our own curriculum.
All right, I'm coming back to you. Generation 2, our time is now. Provocative, but also make provocative proposals on how we can advance nation building in the country. Does it make sense? Because you see, if it's your time now, don't ask questions and say that we answered here. You see, make a proposal as well. Suggest ideas, because please give the leaders who are in front of you work to do. When they go back home tonight, let them take something away from you and say, okay, this is what we were thinking, but it appears we need to incorporate this type of thinking. Go ahead, man.
My name is Tlalentles Busisiwe Simelana from the University of Pretoria. I'd like to make a suggestion to the Generation 2.0. What I suggest is that we as Generation 2.0, we've been given a chance to study as such and to make something out of our lives. What I suggest we do now is we should go back to our societies and elucidate or rectify the issue of patriarchy in our societies, and then come out with a plan. Let us not only develop ourselves in terms of economic-wise or education as such, but let us go back to our societies and raise those who are still down there, who do not have the power, or should I say, who do not have what it takes to be here. But let us go back to our societies and bring them back here so that they can also get educated as we are. Let us not be full of ourselves only.
Thank you very much. Let's get a thought, a view from the side.
The youth wants to be heard as well. The youth wants to be heard as well. And then after, give it to me straight.
Now there's social cohesion for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bryn Guthrie, and I'm from the University of Pretoria. My question has a lot to do with social cohesion, and I kind of have a suggestion as well, but we can speak about that afterwards. And it's basically, as a white South African, at least on my behalf, a socialist, a feminist, all of these things put me in a very uncomfortable position where, on the one hand, there's a traditional expectation of the kind of things that I should be saying, and on the other, I simply can't say them. And how, as part of the majority discourse, or at least part of the minority who dominates the majority, how do you deal with that uncomfortable feeling where your conscience just can't align with the kind of realization that is actually happening in society? So that's my question, is how do you deal with the discomfort that comes about as being a white person who wants to fit in and wants the social cohesion but can't seem to find it in our polarized society? My suggestion is maybe controversial because it's based on an assumption that leaders in the economy, especially because our economy is so dominated by white males, seem to take the voice of white people more seriously than they take the voice of the black majority. An extremely sad but true reality. And perhaps the solution to my question is just that white people in South Africa should never pretend that they speak on behalf of black South Africans, but so we should never pretend that we speak on behalf of black South Africans, but we can certainly speak out against the socio-economic differences, against the gender discrimination, and against the patriarchy that continues to perpetuate these divides. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. So, what's your name again? Sorry.
My name?
Yes.
My name is Bryn.
You didn't do anything wrong, don't worry.
Okay.
I was just saying that be careful, you see, becoming so popular, next time you'll find all these black students voting you the leader, you see. All right, let's get a comment from the side. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Amber. I'm from the Tshwane University of Technology. I think I have a solution for some of the topics that happen here today, because the problem is when you have a youth filled up in a hall like this is we tend to have these talks where you want to hear what the youth has to say, but when we talk, do such things get implemented? That's the problem number one that we have to fix, that as we talk as the youth, our voices need to be heard. So I think, like taking for example, like as a young aspiring engineer, we tend to get incentivized by these private companies. Government is doing nothing to try and grab the young generation to come and work for them. We see no purpose in working for the government because we see as the private, there's more benefits in working for private sectors. So I think government should create an incentive for young people to get into government companies and actually try to give back to our community. Like with Professor Samadora was saying that we should get a hand up instead of handouts. I think it should start with government creating incentives for the youth, not just creating places like this where we can talk as the youth. We can actually see that our talks are being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I more or less anticipated this when I said be provocative and make proposals, make suggestions. Let's hear from this side. Go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Grant Davis. I'm from Wits University. You know, I think reflecting on what all the panel speakers have said, I think one of the things that I've always recognized, coming from a very rural area, is this thing of sawubona, we see each other. And I think, you know, as a young person, how is it that we can be recognized by our government, for example? And I think it's young people are yearning to be recognized. Young people are yearning to be given the opportunity to talk. Because I think you can reflect that everybody here has something really amazing to say. But it's about actually getting the government to actually, and people out there to hear us. You know, I've always had to suffer from things like, oh, you're too young. But what does that mean? Does it mean I'm not good enough? No, it means I want to be recognized. Because I'm tired of complaining. I want to do something more. And I think I would implore all the young people here to say, let's stop complaining. Complaining never changed the world. But let's do something that, even if it's making one person smile every single day, that is what happens. That is what works. Thank you.
All right, before we move on, I just want to ask you then, how do you want things to change practically speaking? What would you like to see happen?
I think for starters, thinking about the notion of a developmental local governance, it's about getting young people to participate. Real participation means actually engaging with young people. Not just having these colloquiums once in a while, but it's about saying to young people, I hear you. So it's about sitting down with young people and saying, you've got a great idea. How can we help you to make that idea a reality? And it's small things that happen like that, and they can happen at a micro level, at a municipality, at a ward committee level. It's about saying we recognize that young people's voices matter in this world.
Thank you. Right, let's hear from the lady this side. Go ahead.
I'd like to say good evening to the panel and...
Where are we now? Oh, we're here in front, okay. And then we'll come back to you there at the back. Go ahead.
I'll start off by, my name is Jessica Dlamini, a student from the University of South Africa. I'd like to start by saying that the poor are also entitled to good quality education. Simply what I'm saying is that independent schools cannot cater for the masses. This is where the Department of Education should be ruling, and it's its domain. So I'd like to pose a question to Ms. Xoli Swabam, saying that, is it impossible for us to implement Cambridge systems, the IEB systems, into our normal circuit of education? Is it impossible? So that, because the reason why I'm saying this, it's a suggestion, because it enables us to compete globally as students, because our current education systems, it limits us geographically, and we're not able to apply anywhere abroad. Another suggestion I have for us youth as at large, I'd like to say that patriotism is very important, because I do not think that us as youth can develop something that we do not love. We need to learn to love Africa and love and give back to South Africa. Lastly, I'd like to pose a question to Mr. Roof, Mr. Mayor, sorry. Do you think the Constitution reflects the will of the African people?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, there at the back, let's hear from you. I can see you. Go ahead. Give her the microphone, yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nicole Mangondo from the University of Johannesburg. I would like to firstly thank the Minister of Sports and Recreation for giving basketball a chance. So my question and suggestion is that physical education is being removed. It's not made compulsory anymore. For example, the school where I coach at, this year they've removed physical education. That means 20 years from now, I won't have kids that have fundamentals for sports. They won't be able to pivot, pass balls, or anything, basically. Also, without physical education, children aren't able to be introduced to the love of sports. They aren't being introduced to social cohesion, respect, tolerance that you were talking about. So my suggestion would be that we allow physical education to continue, and if anything, make it compulsory. Thank you.
All right, and let's take another comment. Yes, from the gentleman there. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Mandla Kulula Gonkosi. I'm from the Wits University. Well, I hope you noticed I've been there from that last row, coming all the way to this row, raising my hand. Well, basically, I'm sorry. I'd like to finish, please. Well, basically, that's
it shows innovation on your part.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, that has been my problem for like most of my life. I come from Soweto, Zola, Southwestern Township. I had a passion for science ever since I was like a baby, 4 years old. I said I wanted to be a science, and my parents laughed at me. If you didn't hear that, well, not scientist, but science. I didn't know that it was the other way around. Yeah. So my problem is that, and I remember when I was like 15, grade 9, we had to have some proper career guidance scheme where they tell us that you want to be this, okay, we're going to give you this certain stream, you're going to be this, we're going to give you this certain subject. I want to be an astrophysicist. But here's a problem. I was the dumb one. Apparently that's what everybody thought. And I was neglected. I was caught up into studying accounting and business studies and economics, which I hated so much. They pushed me to studying math lit. I'm stubborn.
So what's going on now? So just help us so that...
I'll be short. Well, this is the second generation dialogue, not generation 2.0 dialogue. So I guess I need to have my own voice.
Okay.
And I say all things that I need to say. And I'll start with my first story. It'll be short, I promise, 2 minutes. I'll keep it concise. And yeah.
All right. You know what? Let me propose something to you. Just make a suggestion.
Yeah.
And then let's move on.
I feel as if you're not taking me seriously. I've seen like PhD impressive student talk for about 5 minutes. I timed it each time, and I gave them time. So I'd like to have my free time also. I earned it.
Okay.
I earned it.
Well,
So-
please bear with us. As you can imagine, we're trying to utilize a very limited resource, which is time, and we have to conclude the proceedings in a very short time. I want the panelists to comment on what you've just said.
Okay.
Please just make the point,
I'll
and
be then
I want them
concise.
to comment.
I'll be concise. So long story cut short, I decided in grade 12, January, that I'd...
Well, I'm afraid. Okay.
Short.
All right.
Give me a chance.
Ms. Kolisobam,
waited
there was
all
a
this
question
way
for
just
you.
to talk. Give
If
me
you
a
can
chance.
please...
I'm done.
All right.
2 minutes.
Well, I'm sure the technical people will assist us in that regard. Please take the microphone. Can you please comment, ma'am? Can you respond to some of the comments that we've taken here?
Yeah.
Kolisobam.
Yes, I can't. There's noise.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
If-
All right. I
if-
know
if
that
I-
you're very keen to speak. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead.
If I understood her well, her question, she was saying why is it that children from poor or disadvantaged backgrounds, why is it that they cannot access independent schools or private schools? Is that what you were asking, sis? Sorry? Was that the question?
Yeah. But
Why is it that they cannot access independent or private schools, other children? Upgrade.
Cambridge. My question was, why can't our current curriculum upgrade to levels such as Cambridge and IEB so that we can be globally competitive students?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll speak in general. I think the systems are different. Whether the other is better than the other, I cannot quite address that. But what I know is that quite a number of the students and some of the achievers in South Africa have come from rural schools. And now we say the Model C schools or independent schools and private schools. One time when we were engaging the Minister of Education on some of the challenges of why is it, in fact, he was also engaging us as a council members from various universities. Why is it that where do we go wrong? Where do we lose our students? Why is it that we are not producing enough professors? Why are our students not going beyond 1 degree, proceed towards postgraduate studies? And, you know, some of us were asking ourselves, what is it that we are not doing well, you know, to provide, whether it's resources or whatever. But recently, we noticed that, and this has been the trend, a number of students from rural schools, from peri-urban schools, are doing well. In fact, one could also pose the question to yourselves as to why is it that, what is it that limits one not to proceed beyond, you know, master's degree, become a doctor or a professor and whatever, especially amongst black students, because we find that, in fact, it's students who come from other countries who are filling up our universities and are becoming professors. So it's a difficult one. We don't know whether it's about determination on the part of the individual students, determined, but at the same time, one often hears that because our backgrounds, because we are still disadvantaged, because some of the students come from, you know, poor backgrounds, maybe to some extent, it is because some still need to quickly get a job. Once one finishes whatever, one needs to go out and work and be able to support one's family. But, I mean, there is UNISA. There are many other universities where one could still continue with his or her studies, you know, to proceed to doctoral level. So it's a catch-22 situation, if one may put it that way, because at the same time, I know there are bursaries that are being made available so that students could proceed to higher levels. But maybe you could raise a question as to accessibility and whether we have enough resources, in fact, you know, to be able to cover everyone.
Sure. I'm going to rush you, because we are concluding now. In 30 seconds, it looks like I did on rules, you see, because people wanted 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on. In 30 seconds, tell me, what do you want for yourself? How can society help you? And how can you help us help you? Generation 2, now is your time. Who's the first to go?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Be the first. Quickly.
Thank you very much.
What do you want? How can we help you? How can you help us?
I'm not going to waste your time.
Please go for it.
To shoot straight to the point. My name is Ntando Sindane, the chairperson of the SRC in UNISA. The questions are going to be divided this way. And then Mr. Rolf Meda to Mr. Somato Tafigin. Now, in my hand, Tim, I've got the buzzword of South Africa, the National Development Plan document. 2 sentences so that I can put my question into context. Now, it's written here, high corruption levels frustrate society's ability to operate fairly and efficiently, and the state's ability to deliver on its development mandate. Now, the most important sentence here, political will, I repeat, political will is essential to combat this scourge. Now, my question is there such political will in South Africa to fight corruption? And if it is there, how are we going to see it?
Okay,
is
thank
it
you.
A display? No.
I don't have all the time. I've got to share it with others. We got the question. Yeah. Let's go to another one on this side, please. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead. Please, go for it.
Hi, my name is Awanda Zwane. I'm from Wits University. Just to answer your question, Tim, I'd like to see a South Africa where our parliamentarians respect our democracy and respect our constitution, because what we're seeing right now is a blatant lack of respect for the constitution, with where we're finding that policemen are being called into parliament, which is something that we know has never been permitted. The disregard for the reports from the public protector. So what we want is a democracy that is respected and a constitution that is respected by our leaders.
Thank you. And then one final comment at the back somewhere. One final comment. Where are we? Okay. All right. Well, in that case, let's pause right there. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead very briefly, and that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Tepang from Vets. Apparently, I come from Lesotho. So I've got just a few contributions within this limited time. One good person once said, because now I'm going to contribute coming from Lesotho context, analyzing South Africa being a young person.
Please don't analyze anything if you can. Just make a brief comment so we can conclude.
Okay, the challenge that I think our young people are facing in this country is heavily due to our leadership that is running this country, because Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see. So if we have got that kind of a leadership that ignores the reality that young people get frustrated if they don't see the good role models who are running the country. And secondly, our young people
Thank you very much.
Need...
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Well, you've heard the inputs of the Generation 2 here. And remember, we are continuing the conversation on Twitter, hashtag Unite for Mandela. On Twitter, hashtag Unite for Mandela. As we wrap the proceedings, well, in time, all of us realize that actually time is a finite resource. So there was a time I also believed that you can have unlimited time. Unfortunately, when you are on TV or anywhere else, you've got to finish by a certain time. So even the panelists, I'm giving you very short moments to close tonight's proceedings, starting with you, Somato Rafika, in a minute or less.
Well, I think we should be saying to the youth of today, you are the leaders you've been waiting for. And secondly, I think it is correct to say it might just be a mistake for us to say we have triple challenges in the country. It must be triple plus one. Corruption has become a very serious problem, which tend to prevent us from dealing with the other triple challenges. So that in itself of saying we have triple challenges without acknowledging corruption as a serious problem will come back to catch us.
What one would like to see and suggest is that we go back to the drawing board. A lot of good has come out of this country. It means the foundation is there, whether it's in terms of our social values, moral values, or spiritual values, but we need to go back and reinvent the wheel, if that's what it means. Do what we know we are good at, especially in our schools. One mentioned that there are certain subjects that used to be included in our curriculum. I know that there's a discussion around that. Maybe we need to bring back some of the subjects that used to be part of our curriculum. For instance, in sports, arts and culture, music, which are some of the skills that really keep one going. Sewing, some of the life skills, what we call life skills. Let's go back to the drawing board and look at what we can draw from what we have we're ignoring.
Okay, let me just steal 1 minute or two, if I can get the microphone to this side. But, few people with disabilities amongst us, and they've not had a chance to participate in the proceedings. So if you can go ahead and make a brief comment.
Hi.
Could you hold on a second? Let's get a comment from this side. Go ahead.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Takani Masuka. As I'm certain that the issue of economy is very much hot. And I just want to make a distinction between independence and liberation. I'm certain that South Africa is independent but not yet liberated. The external interference is still dominantly regulating the economy of South Africa. And with one reason, that our economy as it is dependent on European countries, it is because of the technical skills that the government is not empowering the young generation to develop. And in other ways, there is no way in which we can have technical economic freedom if we are not taking it from that angle.
Thank you.
So it is important, the contribution is, the suggestion is, it is important that our leaders also consider investing in our economy and have confidence in our independent national economy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've heard your inputs, and the discussions will continue. This is not a once-off event, but it is the culmination of a series of discussions that have taken place around the country, and it's an ongoing debate in any event. Rolf Meyer, very brief comments from you, and then I'll allow Natim Teto, Fikile Mbalula to also comment.
Tim, I think it would be fair to say that the biggest challenge that the world has to address to date, the whole world, is the one of poverty and inequality. It's not only limited to South Africa, it's not only limited to Africa, it's all over the world, even in the developed world. And there is no country, no nation that has so far produced a clear answer on how to address that problem. If we in South Africa can do what we have done 20 years ago to solve our problems then, now repeat it with regard to an economic model that can address this challenge, then I think we will win.
Thank you very much. Minister Mteto?
Thanks, Tim, and thanks to our participants here. Just to say that one major thing which must be foregrounded here is that the voice of the youth of South Africa has never gone unheard. If today you talk about the second phase of transition and fundamentally addressing the economic disparities of society, it's because of unemployment, which affects young people by and large. It's about inequalities, about poverty. And these things are the ones which form basis of the perspective of dealing with having attained political freedom, deal now with the economic emancipation in our society.
Minister Mbalula?
Hello? Yes. I must say that I'm very disappointed with the organization of this setup because my expectation really was that we're going to have a congested, robust discussion without people hiding how they feel, what they think. I think Somatoda, Rolf Meyer, Minister Mtetwa, Umamupam were just here to facilitate the discussion. This is supposed to be a conversation. And we did not even rub over the face of the fundamental issues that we're confronted with that we need to end. So it's an important beginning which we must build on and have more focused debate and discussions and allow the students to also have some sort of preparation on their part so that we can have what is called conversation and have others who don't necessarily agree with the mainstream to also come and voice their voice. Immediately when you talk about ZK Matthews, UNISA, people just think of a rally and election debate. We're not going to be heard there. But I think that it may be, I don't want to water down the views that have been expressed. And I want to add by saying that the challenge that we continue to face as young people and the youth of South Africa is to do away with the I and me. Because it's so much about waiting somewhere for government on the waiting list to come and deliver our Father thy art in heaven, who President Zuma Pretoria. And we are here in the institution of learning. We are unable to digest and give answers to very complex political questions that confront our country. I don't expect a young person who's afraid to express how they feel, what they think, whatever way and direction they can think of. You can imagine today the president of South Africa was sitting here, engaging with you. We should have given you an opportunity to engage with the leadership as part of this generation going forward. We lead from where we are, but we don't understand you and what you think this country must go and What are your views from where you are seated? From the schools, from the institutions, from the classroom where you are taught? What is your thinking about South Africa and nation building? Because we are in parliament. You can complain about us that we bring police in parliament, but parliament has got rules. You can't just stand up and run amok hectare-skelter in parliament. So we want democracy, and parliament is an important institution that must not only be respected, must be robust. But robust means that it has got rules too. It does not mean in parliament when I ascend on the podium, I must make you a favor. You don't need to make me a favor as an opposition, but we must be decent in our conversation. And that is what conversing is all about, without really pulling punches on what you believe in. Nina, what you are seeing is the headlines and the snippets, you know, about the fact that police came in and took people out and that was it. That's not the issue. And I think we need to really converse, and you need to correct us where we are wrong and take it to heart and take it as constructive criticism going forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much, Minister. And I think, you know, you must give yourselves a round of applause. But here are my comments, brief comments. Don't forget that you're part of a global community, particularly Generation 2, with social media, all sorts of things, all types of media that you are exposed to. So not only are we dealing with ourselves as a society here, but you are also dealing with yourselves as part of a bigger global community. I'd like to thank the panelists as well for organizing this and also sharing their thoughts with you this evening. Thank you very much. But before you go away, that is where we were ending.
Well, that's how we come to the end of this special broadcast brought to you by SABC News. That's where we're going to leave it some really brilliant inputs from young people from across our universities. This, of course, dedicated to the memory of our first democratically elected president, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Part of dialogues that are set to continue from now on and beyond, of course, this point. From us here, from me, Vuyo Mvogo, and the rest of the crew, it's a good night.
You're still tuned into SABC News Channel 404. The Gen 2.0 dialogue has just wrapped up at UNISA in Pretoria. Now, the National Colloquium is part of the Unite 2.0 campaign, One Man, One Nation, One Celebration, in honor of the late former President Nelson Mandela's unwavering commitment to justice, equality, non-racialism, nation building and social cohesion. We saw a panel comprising of the Sports and Recreation Minister, Minister of Arts and Culture, as well as an opening address by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. The dialogue was meant to look at this question: do you think we're able to unite for Mandela 20 years on? Some interesting outcomes indeed. South Africa is clearly a nation at work. Hello and welcome to your world on SABC News Channel 404. I'm Tabile Ngwato. Let's take a look at stories making headlines. All pending disciplinary measures and rulings against EFF MPs charged by Parliament will be put on hold pending the outcome of a meeting between Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa and party leaders.
The House today, where are you? Where are you? Right. Well, there's absolutely no doubt that your memories are short.
Heated but accepted debate to all continued in Parliament today without anyone being accused of transgressing the rules of Parliament. And calls for Zimbabwe's Vice President Joyce Mujuru to resign gain momentum. On to our top story. All pending disciplinary measures and rulings against EFF MPs will be put on hold pending the outcome of an intervention by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. This following a meeting between Ramaphosa and opposition leaders. They agreed to work together to restore the dignity and integrity of Parliament. After a week of high drama and chaos in Parliament, an intervention by the Deputy President to seek political solutions and an agreement that presiding officers do not take sides, National Assembly Speaker Balega Mbete has come under fierce attack from opposition parties, accusing her of bias. They called for her head. A committee made up of Ramaphosa, the Speaker, DA Parliamentary Leader Musi Maimane and ANC Chief Whip Stone Sizane are tasked to find a political solution to the EFF matter and Parliament's proper functioning. The opposition has pledged to respect leaders of government who would in turn come to Parliament regularly to account to the legislature. Shortly before Ramaphosa announced the reprieve for EFF MPs, opposition parties slammed the Powers and Privileges Committee report on them. The report, which is now on hold, recommends sanctions ranging from a 14-day to a month suspension from Parliament without pay.
The opposition parties represented on the Powers and Privileges Committee, the DA, the UDM and the IFP, rejects the PPC report on the events of 21 August. The PPC investigation was little more than a political hatchet job by the ANC aimed at achieving a predetermined outcome.
Meanwhile, the Inkatha Freedom Party has praised the government, especially the Minister in the Presidency, Jeff Radebe, for helping bring back South Africans who died in Nigeria in September.
Sifisa-ke nokho ukuzwakalisa ukubonga kwethu okukhulu kumhlonishwa uminister kwi-presidency umhlonishwa uHadebe ngokuqikelela ukuthi idumbuza labo bantu bakithi ababhubha esontweni eNigeria zibuya ekhaya. Sifisa kumshayela ihlombe kakhulu kulokho. Sifisa futhi nokuqhubeka sibonge kakhulu ngemizamo eyenziwe uhulumeni ukuba ibuyise ukuthula ezweni laseLesotho. Nalapho futhi sizwakalisa ukubonga okukhulu. Sizwakalisa ke ukukhathazeka kwethu ngokuqhubeka kwempi yombango elapha eMiddle East lapho kunqunywa khona amakhanda abantu. Sicela nakhona ukuba sengathi uhulumeni kanye nezinye izizwe nabanye uhulumeni emhlabeni bangasheshe ukuthola ikhambi ukuba lo beyabuqaba bokubulawa kwabantu obenzeka lapha buphele. Siyabonga.
The government's commitment to improve primary health care to the poor has been taken a step forward. The Ideal Clinic has been launched as part of the National Development Plan. The aim is to reduce pressure on ailing state hospitals.
TK Mutubasi Clinic in Sojanguve, Tshwane, one of the 10 remodeled as an Ideal Clinic. Services vastly improved and patients treated with dignity. The waiting period reduced to just under an hour.
The service I am getting here makes me happy. The system has changed.
The service is very good.
Staff is equally impressed.
The waiting time has reduced and people now go straight to a reception where they found that our clerks are ready for them, and we have started the new appointment system and we book them according to their time slot.
The number of complaints that we're receiving from patients regarding the services have definitely gone down. So we're still not exactly there where we want to be, but we have improved a lot.
A precursor to the national health insurance.
This goal will only be achieved through a well-functioning health system anchored on primary health care principles. This philosophy, therefore, continues to influence and guide our country as we prepare for the realization of universal health coverage for all the people of South Africa through the implementation of national health insurance.
The model is expected to be rolled out to all clinics countrywide by 2019. Muntlengeni Dipoko, SABC News, Pretoria.
Calls for Zimbabwe's Vice President Joyce Mujuru to resign are gaining momentum. This in the wake of fresh claims linking her to a plot to assassinate President Mugabe. Joyce Mujuru, who was once tipped to succeed the veteran ruler, has denied the claims, describing them as an attempt to remove her unconstitutionally.
You will be shocked. This is the person we called vice president for 10 years. You will be shocked. She must resign forthwith.
What began as allegations of corruption and incompetence have culminated in a claim of treason against Zimbabwe's embattled Vice President Joyce Mujuru. At the recent Politburo meeting, President Mugabe is said to have revealed that he had heard recordings of senior party leaders aligned to Mujuru plotting to hire South African and Israeli hitman to kill him. At 90, Mugabe is headed to what could be his final Congress in the next fortnight and appears desperate to cling on to power. In the last 3 weeks, 8 of the party's 10 provincial chairmen have been voted out and replaced with alleged Mugabe sympathizers.
This is not a question of a page. This is a question of sordid acts by somebody who was in a position of trust and confidence to a superior to the president. She has paid him paid him back in a very negative manner.
Joyce Mujuru has refused to resign, saying she's prepared to go to the courts to defend herself against the allegations. Analysts believe Mugabe routinely reins in his opponents using treason charges.
All the people from Joshua Ngomo, Father Zimbabwe, who lies at the Hiroseka, which politician challenged Mugabe and he has not been charged with the treason or accused of plotting to kill Mugabe. Everyone who challenges Mugabe, Tsvangirai plotted to kill Mugabe, Ndawaningi Stole plotted to kill Mugabe.
With the Congress just 2 weeks away and Mujuru refused, mulling another strategy. The party is debating whether to change the party constitution to scrap provincial nominations for voting for the remaining top posts. This would effectively give Mugabe the sole power to appoint the 2 vice presidents and the national chairman. Shinganyoka, SABC News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
More news coming up after the break. Stay with us.
GovTech is South Africa's premier ICT event hosted by CETA. Our theme for GovTech 2014 is a government empowered by technology. Our topics will explore e-government, infrastructure and broadband, reducing the cost of ICT and service delivery, best practice, innovation and success stories. Join us at the Durban ICC on 2nd to 5th November 2014. Register now on www.govtech.co.za.
Welcome back to your world. After a week of high drama and chaos in Parliament, MPs finally resorted to focus on matters of the House. A range of motions were robustly discussed by the House today.
Are there any other declarations? Yes, Honorable Fabs.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Quite frankly, I'm surprised at the Honourable Macpherson. Only a few months ago, when the ANC members tried to caution the DA in their excitement over championing the work of the NEF, we actually pointed out perhaps they would like to wait till we had done an effective oversight. We were told, we've done an oversight. And we say, you should be supporting in the House today. In the House today. Where are you? Where are you? Right. Well, there's absolutely no doubt that your memories are short. Now, with respect to the EFF, we agree with you. We totally agree. This is a department that has fulfilled all the objectives that it outlined as priorities. Those priorities are and remain the reindustrialization of South Africa through manufacturing as a sharp instrument within the National Development Plan as a vision. Then we are also saying the other one was localization. However, we have yet to get 100% support from the private sector. Our own president has said 75% public procurement will be there. And Minister Davies has said we have not yet signed public procurement in the WTO. Thank God for that. Because otherwise we would not have been able to go and utilize public procurement in order to effectively promote localization.
Anglo American and other mining companies facing a class lawsuit for mining-related illnesses are reportedly planning to settle out of court. Mineral Resources Minister Ngwako Ramatlhodi says Anglo American has contacted him about their intention, and the company has promised to make the announcement at their international headquarters in London today. The company is facing multi-billion rand suit to pay out tens of thousands of claimants suffering from an incurable lung disease known as silicosis. The illness was caused by inhaling silica dust, particularly in the mines.
I received a call yesterday from the vice chair of Anglo in South Africa. She was calling from London, basically indicating that themselves and other affected companies are looking at possibilities of finding an amicable solution to the long-running cases you have referred to. So it's not only Anglo, but it's also other companies that are affected. They are looking at settling out of court.
So, just for clarity, there is no deal as yet, but are they saying that they are close to a deal?
I'm expecting them to make the announcement by today. It should have been done now from London. They said they'll announce today. And by the time we rise tomorrow, I will have been briefed fully by them. They'll come here to brief me.
Now, we know that there is other class action suits that have been brought to other companies here as well, gold company Harmony being one of them, also in South African courts over silicosis. Do you have any updates regarding those cases?
The problem is I've not got a full briefing as we speak, but I know for sure that the companies affected are collaborating in terms of finding a common position with regard to the settlement.
Now, coming to this summit, of course, when people talk about health and safety in the mines, people immediately think about fatalities underground due to rockfalls or people getting crushed by locomotives, fires and so on. AMCU here making a very interesting point that as far as they are concerned, that focus is misplaced. They feel that the main challenge when it comes to health and safety in the mines is diseases such as silicosis, TB and so on. That's what is really affecting workers in the mine. Do you agree with that?
Well, I wouldn't say they're both important issues. There's none that is more important than the other. But TB is the biggest killer in South African mines. And that's what the Minister of Health has told me himself over the years. And therefore, they are coming into a partnership with us as the department to subject our employees in the mines to tests. And those who are found positive, then we follow them to their homes and then test their relatives and so on. So there is a massive program that will be rolled out by the health department in collaboration with ourselves.
What about other lung diseases caused by dust? Not just silicosis, which I understand affects mainly people who work in gold mines, but I mean in platinum mines, all kinds of dust that cause respiratory diseases. Are you addressing that as well?
There are two things regarding that. One is to try and unlock the compensation monies that are lying somewhere with institutions, and we are hoping for those who have been infected and affected would be able to unlock the resources and begin to roll out the program which compensate them. Secondly, we are looking at preventing the recurrence of these diseases by taking proactive measures to prevent such, particularly with regard to you could provide the workers with protective clothing to address that sort of situation or to anticipate it.
Coming to fatalities underground, of course, the numbers have improved tremendously over the years. I mean, in 1994, you made a point. In 1994, we had about 500 or upwards of 500 mine deaths underground with more than 8,000 people getting injured underground. A decade later, 2003, we were down to about 270 fatalities. A decade later, now in 2014, we're talking about less than 100. But still, that's still, any death is regrettable.
Of course we do, and I think that's the statement I'm making in my input, that any injury or any death is a death too many, because you are dealing with fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters. You are dealing not with statistics, but with people.
Time for a quick ad break now. More stories when we return. Don't go away.
SABC. Castle Light has an island, the Republic of Extra Cold. 29 December. Get your tickets now.
Slow motion playback on our new waterproof smartphone. Don't settle for good, demand great. The new Sony Xperia Z3 series.
Get the new Sony Xperia Z3 Compact on a My MTN Choice 100 contract for only $399 and get a free 12-month music streaming subscription.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. At least 51 people have been executed in anti-gang operations in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This according to a report released by the US campaign group Human Rights Watch. The group has also accused the DRC of using the execution to intimidate the local population.
The report, based on witness testimony, is the second high-profile inquiry into Operation Likofi or Punch, which was launched last November to tackle criminal gangs in the capital Kinshasa. HRW said there were likely to have been more killings than the 51 it had managed to document. A police officer in the operation told HRW that well over 100 had been killed.
Operation Likofi was often conducted in a very brutal and illegal manner. Police officers who took part in the operation conducted raids across the city, and in total they killed at least 51 young men and boys and forcibly disappeared 33 others.
Often humiliated young men and boys were dragged in front of their family members and forced to endure the torment.
They went neighborhood to neighborhood, targeting suspected Kaluna. Often they didn't carry out investigations to find out who really were the Kaluna, and people who had nothing to do with the phenomena were targeted.
In October, the Interior Ministry rejected a UN report that produced similar findings and accused its authors of trying to destabilize the government.
It was a good step for the government to say they wanted to start fighting crime here in Kinshasa, but they can't fight crime with crime.
However, the United Nations Joint Human Rights Office in Congo has accused the Congolese National Police of executing at least 9 people in the operation, which ended in February. the government expelled the head of the office, angering the UN Security Council, which has reported threats against the United Nations Joint Human Rights Office staff.
The United Nations Human Rights Agency has expressed shock after an attack that left 4 people dead in a Jerusalem synagogue today. Israeli police say 4 rabbis were killed when armed Palestinians stormed the synagogue with knives and a gun. Police say 3 of the deceased were dual US-Israeli citizens, while the 4th victim was born in the UK. Security officials say about 25 people were in praying when the attackers stormed in. They killed 4 worshippers and wounded 6 more before both were shot dead by security. The UN is calling for restraint from Israel in the wake of a recent violence.
Police say the attackers are Palestinians from East Jerusalem, which has been the scene of relentless clashes between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters in recent months. Violence in Jerusalem has been escalating, fueled in part by a dispute over Jerusalem's holiest shrine. 5 Israelis and a foreign visitor have been deliberately run over and killed or stabbed to death by Palestinians. About a dozen Palestinians have also been killed, including those accused of carrying out the attacks.
We're alarmed by the recent series of violent incidents in Israel on the occupied Palestinian territory. Early this morning, as you're probably aware, at least 4 Israelis were killed and 8 others injured in an attack in a Jerusalem synagogue. On Sunday, a Palestinian bus driver was found hanged in his bus in Jerusalem in unclear circumstances. And at least 6 other people have been killed, including 5 Israelis and 1 Ecuadorian in the past month in alleged attacks involving cars driven at people and knife attacks.
Colville says the UN urges Israel to exercise restraint in the wake of the recent violence.
We condemn all acts of violence which have resulted in deaths and injuries. Israel has a duty to ensure law and order, including by bringing to justice those responsible for these attacks on civilians, but any response must be in accordance with international law. We urge the Israeli authorities to refrain from taking measures such as punitive demolitions, which violate international law and may further inflame the situation.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has also condemned the synagogue killings in Jerusalem and attacks on all holy places.
We strongly condemn this incident and do not accept under any circumstances attacks on civilians. At the same time we condemn these actions, we also condemn the attacks on the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pledged to respond with a heavy hand. He has also accused Western-backed Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas of inciting violence in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry described the attack as an act of pure terror.
Meanwhile, a Palestinian liberation group has claimed responsibility for a bloody attack on worshippers at a synagogue in Jerusalem that left 6 people dead, including the 2 attackers who were shot by police. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine said its men carried out the attack.
This heroic attack is a resistance path that the resistance adopts. We express pride at the 2 martyrs, Comrade Uday and Hassan Abu Jamal. We declare the full responsibility of the PFLP for the execution of this heroic operation conducted by our heroes this morning in Jerusalem.
Founded by George Habash after the occupation of the West Bank by Israel in 1967, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, or PFLP, was formed as a resistant movement. The organization quickly specialized in showcase large-scale terrorist operations beginning on July 23, 1968, with a hijacking to Algeria of an El Al flight en route from Rome to Tel Aviv. Habash ran the movement until his death in 2000. After which Mustafa Zubaidi was elected head of the movement. Mustafa had been Habash's right-hand man since 1969. The movement leaders continue to be based in Ramallah, not far from the offices of Yasser Arafat.
And that was your world. Do join us again next time. From me, Tabile Ngwato, and the rest of the team. It's goodbye for now.
should marijuana be legalized in South Africa or not?
The legalization of dagga is a no to our country. Look at the rate of rape in our country because of people that
But you can't say dagga makes people
that
get
are under
raped
the
then.
influence of dagga.
When a young man comes to you and says, I'm having a problem with dagga, do you send him to jail?
We don't send them to
Then you
jail.
already concede that you agree that prohibition is not the answer,
Because
Mr.
our
Panga.
aim is to help them.
As is ours.
It is you helping them by giving them dagga. How are you going to control this? Just give me a chance. Because if you cannot control it now, as the CYP of South Africa, we say no to the legalization of dagga.
Do you think-
no matter what you study,
do
no
you
matter
think-
what you tell me,
do
I
you
say
think-
no.
Watch Newsroom with me, Eben Janssen, weekdays at 9 a.m. on the SABC News channel.
Kwindaba zethu ngokuhlwanje usekela mongameli Cyril Ramaphosa namaqela aphikisayo babuyisa isidima sepalamente. Lingcwatyiwe eGauteng elinye lamaxhoba athe asweleka kwisiganeko sokudilika kwesakhiwo setyalike eLagos kwelaseNigeria. Kwezemidlalo akwaziwa ukuba iyakuzala nkomoni na kumdlalo eBafana Bafana neqela laseNigeria ngomso. Botani Mzontsundu kwindawo ngendawo enikuzo njengesiqhelo uvimba wethu yaphuphuma. Onke amanyathelo ezoluleko kumalungu eParlamente eqela le-EFF asagodliwe ngelixa kusaqhuba inkqubo yokungenelela kaSisekela mongameli Cyril Ramaphosa okukulandela intlanganiso kaMnumzana Ramaphosa neenkokheli zamaqela aphikisayo kuvunyelwe nengamxhelomnye kwelokusebenzisana ukubuyisela isidima nokuhlonipheka kweParlamente.
Emva koqulu kubhodi yeParlamente kwiveke ephelileyo namhlanje kuchutywa isikhwebu kuzingela isisombululo sezopolitiko.
We had a sense that Parliament was facing a crisis that we needed to address collectively.
Isivumelwano sokuba abahlali ngaphambili njengosomlomo usihlalo webhunga lamaphondo bangathathi icala kwezopolitiko. Usomlomo unkosikazi Mbethe ukhe wagxekwa kabukhali ngamaqela aphikisayo emtyhola ngokukhetha iphele emasini atsho ememelela ukuba awutye umsebenzi.
We also agreed that the presiding officers of Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament and the Chairperson of the Council of Provinces should apply the rules consistently. They should apply them fairly without any favor or without any prejudice. We agreed that they should be impartial, they should be seen as representing all of us who are in Parliament, and they should not seek to side with any political party.
Ikomiti enamalungu abandakanya usekela mongameli Ramaphosa, usomlomo unkosikazi Mbethe, inkokheli ediye eParlamente umnumzana Musi Maimane, umbhexesho inhloko weqela elikhulu eParlamente ANC umnumzana Stone Sizani, ithwaliswe uxanduva lokuzingela isisombululo sezopolitiko kulwabhicelwe EFF nokusebenza ngokufanelekileyo kweParlamente.
Are we going to put all these things that happened the other day in abeyance? Yes, because we are going to find political solutions collectively as a collective year of political leaders.
Kamva umama Mbethe uxelele iParlamente ngalomnyinyivo we-EFF.
One of the agreements reached is that the processes in respect of earlier disruptions in the House will be held in abeyance until the committee has completed its work. That also includes outstanding rulings.
Noku izinto zikhangeleke ezingemtyakanqika namhlanje eParlamente kodwa akubanga kudala lavuka ikakade kwayewulwa. Ibe inkokheli ye-AFP umntwana wakwaphinda angena okhumbuze amalungu eParlamente ngezibhambathiso sanamhlanje.
We had a very good meeting this morning with the Deputy President, trying to stop us going this route of trading off insults and so on, and trying to actually to bring back the decorum of the House.
Thank you very much.
We're meeting next week. I don't think that we should add more things to what happened on Thursday and what happened on the 21st of August.
Amaqela aphikisayo kwathembise ngokuhlonipha iinkokheli zikarhulumente nazo ezizakuquqa zibuyelele eParlamente ukuya kuphendula. Ithe nqumama iParlamente kule veki kwaye ezinjongo zayo zintle zakubonakala kunyaka ozayo ukuba ngokwenene ziyaphunyezwa okanye zakuphelela emoyeni.
Kusuku olunye ngaphambi kokusungulwa kophando lwesisekabani senyikitya yokufa kwamarhamente kwisakhiwo setyalike saseNigeria, ixhoba lokuqala libekwe kwikhaya lalo lokugqibela. Umzimba womfi uPrudence Mandubu ufike kweli lizwe neminye ngama-73 ngecawa uvele eNigeria, ufihlwe ngesithozela kumangcwaba se-Avalon eSoweto namhlanje.
Ekugqibeleni ubuyele koloyisemkhulu umfi uPrudence Mandubu. Izihlobo nezalamane zingungelene ukuza kunika imbeko yokugqibela kwinkosazana yakwaMandubu. Seyivakala isithwakumbe sokuba lo mcebisi ngezezimali ominyaka engama-33 ube phakathi kwamarhamente asutywe lulwamvila lokufa kwindyikitya yokudilika kwesakhiwo setyalike yaseNigeria. Usapho lwagqebheko olungophiyo uduma kwanentlungu engathethekiyo, kodwa emva kokufihlwa kukaPrudence mhlawumbi usapho luza kwamkela luqalise ngendlela eya ekwamkeleni ukuba ulandulele eli limagadahlabayo.
Silinde isikhathi eside and ukulinda kwethu bekungekho kuhle ngoba abantu bebeza bazosikhalisa babuye bahlale futhi bakhathale ngoba manje isikhathi besiside. So njengoba sekafikile sesibabekile namathambo akhe, now sesingamove on.
Usapho lwakwaMandubu lulusabele ikhwelo lenzululwazi lokuba kungcwatywe ngoko nangoko kwanokuba bangabonwa.
Ukanti bekubanjwe inkonzo zesikhumbuzo zamanye amaxhoba kumaphondo amabini namhlanje, eyasempuma koloni bibanjwe kuKomani, elixesha yasemntla-ntshona ibiseMahikeng.
Umzuzu obuhlungu, amaxhoba enhlekele yaseNigeria sithoba empuma koloni ebuyele ekhaya, inhlungu ibhalwe ebusweni kwabanye.
Thina singabantu sikholelwa ekubeni ba siyokumbeka umuntu sibuye sihlamba izandla sikoleke emveni koba simbekile sagalela umhlaba sazokuhlamba izandla ekhaya.
Baziyele ngokwabo eNigeria kangathwele ngurhulumente wethu uthathele lento emagxina akhe onke wenzeni akasoze iphinde ilibale ebomini bam, asoze iphinde ilibale into yoba ayithathe lento ayenze yakhe. Ukuqala eGauteng zandibona into enzeke eGauteng kube ngathi kungcwatywa amajoni alapha
emntla-ntshona mathandathu amaxhoba.
We are happy that our loved one has come home, and then we are satisfied with everything that the government has done to brought our loved one home.
Urhulumente wephondo uza kuqhubeka ukuxhasa ezo ntsapho de zingcwabe izihlobo zazo.
As the Department of Social Development, we've been giving psychosocial support to families. Then we are going to continue to give them that support. We'll be visiting their respective homes, then doing counseling to them.
Kanti amazwi ombulelo ngazenzisiwe kumongameli ebhekisa kwiqhinza likarhulumente ebelisingethele umcimbi wokubuyiswa kwale mizimba.
Akujwayelekile ukuthi kubatha abantu uma beshonile bahlala isikhathi eside kangaka. Qinisweni nje akazenzeke. Into ebibuhlungu kakhulu le, not nje kuphela emndenini leyo, ibibuhlungu ithina sonke thina abantu base South Africa. Kodwa ke sivinjelwe ukuthi imithetho ayifani.
Umongameli kwagqithiswe amazwi ovelwano kwigosa lempilo elisweleke emva kokufumana imalaria eNigeria. Uninzi lwamaxhoba longcwatywa kule mpelaveki. Kundaba ze-SABC ndinguNatipinqose.
Kuthabathe olunye unyawo ukuzinikela karhulumente ekuphuculeni inkonzo zempilo kwabo bangathathi ntweni. Kusungulwe ikliniki njengenxalenye yesicwangciso sophuhliso sesizwe sikarhulumente ngenjongo zokothula umthwalo kwizibhedlele zikarhulumente.
Le ikliniki TK Mutubatsi eSoshanguve eTshwane yenye kwezilishumi eziphuculweyo yaye nomgangatho wenkonzo uphuculwe, izigulane ziphathwa ngesidima kananjalo nexesha lokulinda lingaphansi kweyure.
Service la sithola le kliniki i-right, basiphatha kahle sonke isikhathi, sithola ku-clean and basiphatha kahle ngasonke isikhathi.
Nabasebenzi abawuvala umlomo.
We have started the new appointment system and we book them according to the time slot.
yingabula zidawu ye-National Health Insurance.
The National Development Plan talks about, quote unquote, a health system that works for everyone, produces positive health outcomes, and is not out of reach. This goal will only be achieved through a well-functioning health system anchored on primary health care principles.
Olu hlobo lwekliniki kulindeleke ukuba kuthi kufika u-2019 lube selunatyiselwe kuzo zonke iikliniki zeli.
Kwalapha ezintabeni ziyakhula ingxaki kusekela mongameli waseZimbabwe kodwa masiqale evenkileni.
GovTech is South Africa's premier ICT event hosted by CETA. Our theme for GovTech 2014 is a government empowered by technology. Our topics will explore e-government, infrastructure and broadband, reducing the cost of ICT and service delivery, best practice, innovation and success stories. Join us at the Durban ICC on 2nd to 5th November 2014. Register now on www.govtech.co.za.
Our new waterproof smartphone takes superior photos even in low light. Has PlayStation 4 remote play and up to 2 days battery life. Don't settle for good. Demand great. The new Sony Xperia Z3 series.
Zoom into Africa. This is Eritrea. The president is Mr. Isaias Afewerki. Eritrea got independent from Ethiopia on 24th May in 1993. The population is over 5 million people. One of the major languages spoken is Arabic. Monetary unit is the Nakfa.
The Kenyan actress is the first from her country to win an Academy Award. Her Best Actress Oscar win has inspired many in Kenya.
Nyong'o's victory has made the headlines in all of the country's newspapers. This was Nyong'o's first role in a film after she had completed postgraduate studies in America.
Players in South Africa's music industry will attend the Music Exchange program in Cape Town, South Africa.
We as Africans, we have to embrace what is unique about us and about our music.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Sinamkele kwakhona kwindaba zejelo le-SABC 1 kanti kwinqaku lokuqala sithe inkokheli zezopolitiko zivumelene kwelokusebenzisana ukubuyisela isidima nokuhlonipheka kwepalamente. Ezinkokheli bezidibene nosekela mongameli weli umnumzana Cyril Ramaphosa epalamente ngalentsasa. Phambi kokuba usekela mongameli umnumzana Cyril Ramaphosa abhengeze ukuba iza kunikwa umtyhi i-EFF ngokugxobha-gxobha inkqubo yendlu yowiso-mthetho, amaqela aphikisayo ayigxeke kabukhali ingxelo yekomiti amagunya nezibonelelo ngakwi-EFF. Le ngxelo nesabekelwe bucala inezindululo zokuba anqunyanyiswe amalungu e-EFF iintsuku ezili-14 ukuya kwinyanga epalamente kwaye angafumani mivuzo.
The opposition parties represented on the Powers and Privileges Committee, the DA, the UDM and the IFP, rejects the PPC report on the events of 21 August. The PPC investigation was little more than a political hatchet job by the ANC aimed at achieving a predetermined outcome.
Likhula ngamandla ikhwelo lokuba alahle esikhundleni usekela mongameli waseZimbabwe unkosikazi Joyce Mujuru. Kungoku nje unkosikazi Mujuru oyanyaniswa negumgedle lokuzama ukubulala umongameli Robert Mugabe. Unkosikazi Mujuru uyaziphikeza izithyolo.
Izityholo zaqala ngathi lurhwaphilizo lokungakwazi ukwenza umsebenzi ngokufanelekileyo zijike yezi izityholo zelinge lokunqatsha umbuso kusekela mongameli waseZimbabwe osezimbandezelweni unkosikazi Joyce Mujuru.
You will be shocked. This is the person we called vice president for 10 years. You will be shocked. She must resign forthwith.
Kubikwa ukuba kwinhlanganiso yakujanja umongameli Mugabe udize ukuba uve ushicilelo lwencoke enkokhelo eziphambili zeZANU-PF esikudlana ngamagxala abanonkosikazi Mujuru sigwadla igumgedle lokumcima igama usetyenziswa odubligeqo boMzantsi Afrika nakwaSirayeli. Ukanti abakhimkanyi bezopolitiko bathi liqhinga lidala likaMugabe loko yamanisa abaphikisana naye nezityholo zokunqatsha umbuso.
All the people from Joshua Ngomo, Father Zimbabwe, who lies at the Hero Seka, which politician challenged Mugabe and he has not been charged with the treason or accused of plotting to kill Mugabe. Everyone who challenges Mugabe, Changirai plotted to kill Mugabe, Ndawaningi Stole plotted to kill Mugabe.
Njengoko sekusisithuba esingaphansi kweveki ezimbini kubanjwe inkomfa yeZANU-PF, unkosikazi Mujuru esala ukuthi kubucala kukhangeleka ngathi iZANU-PF iza kugwadla cebo limbi.
Nanjengoko kubhalwa imviwo zokuphela kwenyaka, uninzi lilungiselela ukuya kumaziko emfundo ephakamileyo liphezulu nenani labo bangenamisebenzi. I-Technical and Vocational Education and Training Colleges zithi zinganceda ukuza nesisombululo.
Phanze kwizizalato zonke zeli uhlangana nabantu abafuna imisebenzi.
I've been standing here for like 11 years now. I'm a technician. I studied in Pretoria.
Urhulumente ukhala ngokunqongophala kwezakhono kodwa abantu bona bathetha enye into.
Got a lot of specialist guys who knows the job there. We have got electricians, we have got plumbers who are qualified.
Abanye bade behambe bezithengisa bephethe izetifiketi zabo.
Amakolleji siwahlanganisa ikakhulukazi nenhlangano lezi eziqeqeshayo ezingaphansi komnyango wethu okuthiwa amasitha ukuze sikwazi ukugqugquzela ukuthi abafundi bathole ithuba lokuthi umsebenzi bangagcini ngokufunda encwadini kodwa bayowenza futhi emsebenzini ngoba yena into yosisiza le kakhulu ukuthi lamakolleji akwazi ukuthi athathe iningi lentsha yethu okuyimanje ehlele emakhaya.
Kukho isimemelelo sokuba kungahoyo abo banezidanga kuphela nabo banomdla ekwenzeni imisebenzi yezandla bengena matric nabo mabanikwe ingqwalasela.
Masipala eThabathwewu waseMpumalanga uthiwe uhambo zingxaki eziphathelene nezindlu ubhenele kwinkundla zamatyala ukusombulula lengxaki kutyhola ngelithi abantu abangene kwizindlu ezingezo zabo kuba zazakhelwe abantu abangasebenziyo abakhubazekileyo kwakunye nolutsha.
Umhlaba olithabazi wenziwa mhle ngakumbi zingqangqasi wazobeka ngakumbi kukwakhiwa kwezindlu zaseGlory Hills liphulo laseChina ukulungiselela abangasebenziyo ulutsha kwanabantu abakhubazekileyo. Kutyholwa ngelithi abasebenzi bakarhulumente kunye nezihlobo zabo bazithathela ezi zindlu.
Lezi zindlu ezithengiswayo lapha bazithengisa ngaphandle komthetho sekele.
Umasipala iThabathwewu wagqiba ukuzithengisa ezi zindlu kodwa kwiveki ezimbini ngaphambi konyulo lwangoMeyi ibhunga lagqiba ukuphikisana nesi sigqibo.
Kude indlu lesesinike umuntu. So that is why then what we did se approach a court ukuthi isincede ukuthi labantu bakhona ukuphuma lapha izindlu because badamage property government.
Abasemagunyeni bathi inkqubo ezakulandelwa xa kunikezelwa ngezi zindlu ayikamiliselwa ngokusesikweni.
Umasipala wesithili Ingaka Modire Mulema eMhlantshona uphantsi kolawulo ngokusemthethweni ngoku okulandela isigwebo senkundla yomgaqo-siseko iyalela ukuba umlawulo lomasipala aqalise ukusebenza. Isigwebo sanamhlanje sixhase sathatyathwa inkundla ephakamileyo ngaphambili sokuba libhangiswe ibhunga lalo masipala.
Ibhunga labhangiswa emva kophando ngolawulo olugwenxa kulo masipala. Umlawuli usamkele esi sigwebo.
Right now we must focus primarily on winning the battle and making sure that there's institutional and infrastructure service delivery with specific reference to providing water and sanitation to the poor people.
Inkundla yomgaqo-siseko ifumanise ukuba isicelo esifakwe ngulo masipala asingxamisekanga. lo gama ukunikezelwa kwenkonzo yamanzi, ugutyulo lwelindle nezinye iinkonzo kwiingingqi ezichaphazelekayo kungxamisekile. Urhulumente wezekhaya wephondo usamkele naye esi sigwebo.
The government has been right in putting that particular decision forward. So we are looking forward to strengthen good governance and service delivery to our people.
Ngokomgaqo siseko isigqeba sebhunga lephondo singalichitha ibhunga likamasipala ukuba liphanzile kuxanduva lwalo lokunikezela inkonzo eluntwini. Ndingusibongile Mkanimpolweni wendaba ze-SABC eGauteng.
Inkokheli ye-National Freedom Party ekwangusekela mphathiswa wezenzululwazi nobuchwepheshe unkosikazi Zanele Kamagwaza Msibi ungeniswe kwisibhedlele saseThekwini. Ingxelo zithi kwimeko engaginyisi mathe kodwa ezinzileyo. Unkosikazi Magwaza Msibi balekiselwe kwisibhedlele saseNewcastle kule mpelaveki isuka kuyo, kodwa uye wathunyelwa kwisibhedlele saseThekwini kamva. Ofisi yakhe ithi ufumana unyango ngenxa yokudinwa. Ukusukela oko unkosikazi Magwaza Msibi wanyulwa njengosekela mphathiswa wezenzululwazi nobuchwepheshe. Uye waxakeka kakhulu ngelixesha aqhuba nemisebenzi yeqela lakhe. Inkosikazi yaseMzantsi Afrika eyabulala abantwana bayo abathathu abakhubazekileyo eLondon iyalelwe ukuba ilaliswe esibhedlele ijaji yaseBritani. Xa ebewisa isigwebo ujaji Sweeney uthe unkosikazi Tanya Clarence uzagcinwa kwisibhedlele sabagula ngengqondo ukuze afumane unyango ngokudandatheka komphefumlo okugqithisileyo. Woleke ngelithi akanakuthunyelwa entolongweni njengoko oko kungakhokelela ekuphazamisekeni kwakhe ngokwasengqondweni nangakumbi. Unkosikazi Tanya Clarence ubesenkundleni ngelixa ijaji wisisigwebo kwaye ubonakele enyembeza. Intatheli ze-Africa Cup of Nations Nigeria zinethemba lokuba ziza kuqhubela nomoya wokutshabalalisa kwanto ephambi kwazo kwanokuzibekela indawo kwitumente ye-AFCON yonyaka ozayo e-Equatorial Guinea. I-Super Eagles zivana amandla namakhwenkwe asekhaya iBafana Bafana e-Uyo ngomso.
I-Super Eagles kwindawo yesibini ku-Group A kulandela impumelelo yazo ngakwiSudan neCongo. Kodwa kunjalo ukuba ziyohlulwa kubetha iBafana Bafana ngomso, loo nto yakutshabalalisa ithemba lazo lokuzibekela indawo kwi-AFCON yonyaka ozayo. ICongo kwindawo yesithathu emva kokubethwa yiNigeria. Eli qela lijongise imibombo eSudan lisazi mhlophe kuba kufuneka lenze ngcono kuneNigeria. Ukanti amakhwenkwe kaShakes Mashaba asesemandleni kulandela impumelelo yawo.
Well, they are in trouble. No, I don't know. The only thing with these games, we only hope that we get the best match officials. That's all. That's what we need. If we get the best match officials, I think the results will come our way.
Group E usavuleleke kakhulu, amaqela akhe asaphupha ukulungela ukungena kwi-AFCON yonyaka ozayo. iGhana isakhokhela nge-8 points kwaye nedronga kwiTogo ingonela ukuyibona idlulela phambili. Ukanti ku-Group D iCameroon esenkcochoyini kule group sele ilibhalisile igama layo kule tumente. Izaklane Ivory Coast eyinqanelwe impela impumelelo nehleli kwindawo yesibini ilandelwa yiRepublic of Congo.
Ikomiti yeli yezemidlalo ne-Olimpiki SASCOC ngamafutshane ibhengeze uluhlu oluhlengahlengisweyo labadlali ababandakanywe kwinkqubo eyaziwa ngele Operation Excellence. Kubadlali abangama-83 abangenela kwiinyanga ezintandathu, ngama-58 kuphela baseleyo.
Le nkqubo i-OPEX ichonga ixhase abadlali nembaleki abanesakhono sokubuya nembasa kwimidlalo ye-Olimpiki nezabakhubazekileyo. Imbaleki zifumana inkxaso kwezezimali, unyango noqeqesho. Umnqa kukuba ibe zindadi ezimbini kuphela ezikoluluhlu, nanjengoko iqela leli lendadi liliqaqambisile eli kwimidlalo engaphambili.
Into esiyenzile ukuthi sibheke ama-athletes sinikwe ama-federations ukuthi bathole i-support ku-Operation Excellence Program, and abanye babo abekho ngoba abazange bamithe i-criteria esisetile for ukuthi ba-qualify for i-support.
Abadlali kufuneka babe kuluhlu lwabadlali abasibhozo abaphambili ukuze babe nokuzilungiselela indawo kwinkqubo ye-OPEX. uChadley Claw noCameron van der Berg kuphela kwendadi ezikolodidi luphezulu. Olu luhlu ke luza kuphengululwa ngoMatshi wonyaka ozayo.
Sizibamba apho mawethu neza ngokuhlwanje tekubele ixesha elizayo kamnandi.
Cameroon's economic capital, a unique art collection is on display. Titled Yesterday's Memory, Tomorrow's Memory.
We are trying to preserve this heritage despite many things that have changed in the designing, embroidery and the model.
If I'm telling you, you don't like it, I call it defeat.
Join Musam Khalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
molweni mawethu naliqikelelo lwemozulu masisho into ba izinto zininjani ngokuhlanje hayi nokwena sikhona izantshizana ezithe qaze emvula kwindawo ziphakamileyo ezisempuma kanti ke lithwerholele ngamafunda ezigudlu unxime lwaphaya empuma koloni hlaba umhlaba ke kummandla esentshona kodwa ikhona la moya eyakuthi pholo neko ngokuhlanje kanti ke ngomsusulumkiso esikhuthiwe sokudaleka nokunwenwa kwemililo yamadlelo kwindawo ezikwintshona yase Northern Cape ngokunjalo phaya entshona koloni ewe isekhona wena la moya eyakuthi bhudla pha kunxime olusentshona holele ngamafu kwakhona kwindawo ezigudlu unxime luphaya empuma kanti ke iqolo zisine zamvulana ezingephi kwindawo ziphakamileyo eziphaya empuma lumkela ke wena nezasibhaxuze inkungu ngentsela ngomso phaya empuma koloni kwaZulu Natal kuyakuthi gaphaya kwindawo zifana nako Musina amaqondo wethu asibonisa into banoko kuyakuphola ngentsela ngomso phaya empuma koloni kodwa kehle kakhulu amaqondo kwindawo zifana phaya eGafu ngokunjalo phaya eBethlehem ukuyakutho phaya eBloemfontein kufudumele ke phaka kwindawo ziphakamileyo kodwa ke lipholile phaya eGautini ukuba ngabe phaya entshona koloni nakhona lindele imozulu lithande noko ukufudumala ngentsela ngomso fudumale ke ubukhulu becala kwindawo esiphakamileyo kodwa ke amaqondo ehlepha yam Sutherland ngesihlanu nje into ethi noko kuyakuthi kubande ekufudumele phaya kwincami yeKapa ngomso kodwa kathathisa amaqondo phaya eVostile likhupha inhlanzi emanzini ngo35 kwindawo esifana phaya eFredental kuyathisa ke naphaya eSpringbok kanti kuba ngaba wena phaya empuma koloni ungalindele imozulu ethande noko ukufudumala kwindawo esifana phaya eGafu kuyokutsho phaya eKaladoko kodwa ke ehla amaqondo kuphole nje kahle phaya eKomani ukuyotsho phaya koWestbourne eMthatha phaya eMbuqe ukonikela phaya eMnambethi kuthandwe nokuba ube bufudumala kodwa ke kupholile phaya eBethlehem ngokunjana phaya eGautini fudumale ke kwindawo eziphakamileyo maniphele mehlweni nisale inhliziyweni kamnandi.
President Robert Mugabe began a state visit to China on Sunday in a bid to lure investment in his country's stagnant economy. President Xi Jinping hailed Mugabe as a renowned African liberation leader.
Proudly, South Africa is indeed pressing on with its Ubuntu School campaign, launched in 2012.
Somehow, as South Africans, we have drifted from the core of who we are. We have kind of lost a sense of identity.
The program aims to address the rising levels of sexual violence and bullying at schools.
You find the amount of hooliganism and sexual violence in schools. So it's actually quite disturbing. And the challenge is quite huge.
PM News every day, 3 to 5:30 p.m.
Groei maken ze kast. Ja, de park is er. Kom.
Mo kgasong eno